Hello and welcome to the 2018 Actual Tech Media Converged, Hyperconverged, and Composable Infrastructure Megacast event. On today's event, I'm excited to be joined by Unitrends, NetApp, Nutanix, Datrium, and Pivot3. My name is David Davis. I'm a partner at Actual Tech Media, and I'm honored to be the moderator on today's event. I'm a 10-time VMware vExpert. I've been in the industry writing, blogging, and speaking now for many years. And being a former system administrator and IT manager myself, I'm passionate about innovative enterprise technology and what it can offer companies of all sizes. We at Actual Tech Media created the Megacast and EcoCast event series, and the goal of these events is to help educate the world of IT professionals about the most innovative enterprise-grade technology solutions that are available to you today, to help you to learn as much as possible, to get all your questions answered, and to do it all in one online virtual event that you can attend quickly and efficiently without having to ever leave your home or your office. And while you're learning, you have the chance to win one of our very cool prizes, which I'll be talking about in just a moment. Now, before we kick it off, there's a few things that I need to let you know about today's event. You're going to hear from 5 of the hottest companies in the hyperconvergence, converged, and composable infrastructure space. Each presenter on the event today will speak for roughly 20 minutes, followed by a live 3 to 5 minute Q&A session where I'll be asking questions from you, our audience. So this event is not a competition between the presenters. There's no winner being selected here today. As I said, this is an educational event for you, our audience. And to help make sure that this event remains positive, I've asked all the presenters to focus on what differentiates their product and to present their unique features and their unique value proposition. Basically, we asked them how to present how their solution is going to help make your life as an IT professional easier. So with that, let's kick it off. First, a little bit of housekeeping here. There's a few things that you need to be aware of. So as I mentioned, we've got some cool prizes to give out today. We've got 5 Sonos Dual Play 1 speakers with Sonos, the Sonos subwoofer package. This is a package. It's 2 speakers and a subwoofer. I actually have this in my living room. It sounds really awesome. And we've got 5 of those to give away today. You're not going to give away. You're not going to get mine from my living room. We've got 5 brand new ones to give away, as well as 5 Amazon $500 gift cards. So after each of our presenters, we'll be giving away 1 Sonos Dual Play speaker bundle and 1 Amazon $500 gift card. I'll be covering the prize requirements and eligibility about the prizes in just a moment. Now, questions. As I said, we want this to be educational, so we want you to use that questions box there that's just below the slide window and ask as many questions as you want. We love questions, and I will do my best to make sure that every one of those questions gets answered either verbally from a presenter or electronically from a presenter or from myself. So ask all the questions you want, and we'll do our best to answer them. We also have poll questions that we'll be asking you, our audience. We want to hear from you. We want to learn about, what your challenges are in the data center. We want to learn a little bit about, your company's size and things like that. And I'll be sharing those results with you so you can see how you compare to your peers who are on the event. Now, when it comes to social, Twitter, things like that, we encourage you to promote the event via Twitter, and you can do that directly from your console right there. There's a Twitter icon down at the bottom of the console. And if you click on that, the first time you go to use it, you kind of have to click and do a blank tweet, if you will, and it will authorize your Twitter account. It'll prompt you for your Twitter username and password if you aren't already logged into Twitter. And then it will bring you back, and it didn't send that blank tweet, but then you can tweet after that, and it will automatically append the hashtag for today's event, which is HCI Megacast. Now, I'll be monitoring the hashtag throughout the event, and I'll be tweeting, responding, following people, trying to answer your questions. So feel free to use Twitter. We want to make this a social event, as much as possible and help spread the word about what we're doing here related to enterprise technology education, with the world. Now, when it comes to resources, we recommend that you check out the 5 resources that are available there on your console from today's sponsors. You can click on each one of those. It's essentially a PDF about whatever topic they'll be presenting on today's event. You should also know that you can drag or maximize the presentation window to make it larger, just like a windowed operating system. Click on the maximize button there. It'll maximize the presentation window. You can do that on half of your screen or a full screen, whatever you want to do. That really makes the presentation visible for you, and that's especially important when some of the presenters do like architectural diagrams or they do live screen share demos, things like that. So I encourage you to do that now. You can also email the webcast to friends or colleagues from the console using the email icon. And if at any point you have trouble during the presentation, say you don't see anything, you don't hear anything, something's not working, I encourage you to press refresh on your browser, and 9 times out of 10, that'll fix every problem that you might have. This is a live event, so things can and do and sometimes do go wrong, but hopefully not today. It's going to be a great event. However, if you have any kind of issue, again, press refresh on your browser, and if that doesn't fix it, then send us a question, and hopefully we can resolve it for you. Now, when it comes to winning prizes, let's talk about those for a minute. So here you can see we've got the 5 Sonos Dual Play 1 speakers and subwoofer audio kit bundle. We'll be giving those 5 away to 5 lucky winners, and then 5 $500 Amazon gift cards as well. So a ton of awesome prizes to give out on today's event. When it comes to being eligible for the prize drawings, you must be live on the event today, and winners have the option to make a donation to a selected charity. For specific prize details and eligibility, I encourage you to click on the link on your console right there that says prize terms and conditions. That'll take you to a web page where you can read all about the eligibility requirements and as well as the requirements for the grand prize winners to submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. Now, as I mentioned, we love to give away prize values to charity. If you win a prize and you say, you know what, I would really like to help someone else out with my prize winnings, we'll take that value and we'll give it away to one of these selected charities that you can choose from. So we've given away thousands of dollars to charities over the years doing these events, and we appreciate anyone who chooses to support the charities and are glad to help you do that. Now, I mentioned social media. Again, the hashtag for the event is HCI Megacast. So follow that hashtag on Twitter. Today's event is presented and produced by Actual Tech Media. You can follow us on Twitter. And I am David M. Davis. Again, you can follow me on Twitter, and I'll be chatting with you over there. I also want to point out that you can subscribe to other Actual Tech Media channels. We have an active YouTube channel, a Facebook page, and our podcast on iTunes, which is the 10 on Tech podcast. Make sure you check that out. Now, before we jump into our first presentation, I want to first off, take a few minutes and talk about the challenges that I believe many companies out there, many IT organizations are facing, and talk about briefly how hyperconvergence attempts to address those types of challenges. I've spent a lot of time personally investigating hyperconvergence, convergence, and composable solutions. I've written about those topics, presented about them, done many different video interviews about hyperconvergence solutions especially. And what I've learned is that they all use different approaches. I mean, they're all created with the goal of addressing IT challenges in one way or another, but they take a slightly different approach. So let's talk about some of today's IT challenges. The first one is, kind of the classic, not enough time and too much to do. I mean, more and more companies are being pushed to do more with less, as the saying goes. That's the saying we all hate. But unfortunately, it's the reality at so many companies today. We have more applications, more end users, more devices, so much more data to support and manage and secure. And at many companies, you aren't given any more resources, and no more, money for solutions, and no more people to address these ever-growing challenges. And that's something that I believe hyperconvergence does a good job of addressing. Many companies are demanded to, reduce budgets in many cases. IT is seen as a cost center, and the best way to improve revenue is to lower IT costs. So IT budgets in many cases are being cut from what they used to be in the past. And then we have, complex purchasing challenges when it comes to refreshing our infrastructure in the data center, replacing an aging SAN, or purchasing new storage and compute for a brand new business unit or application we're bringing up. It's just far more complex than it needs to be. Multiple vendors for hardware and software, multiple VARs, multiple support lines, all these things, and then integrating them in the data center, racking and stacking them, deploying everything. It's just far more time consuming, and that really equates to a big problem for the business, because businesses need to be agile, and complex data center solutions aren't a part of that, or they're no help when it comes to business agility. And then in so many cases, we have finger pointing when we need support, when there is a problem, something's running slow, it's not working as it should. We have multiple parties involved, and that creates complexity and downtime. We have high costs or complexity associated with advanced features. For example, high availability for all of our storage infrastructure, or replication, or things like that. In many cases, it's far more complex or costly than it needs to be. And then many companies deal with challenges when it comes to performance and scalability in the data center, dealing with their ever-growing amounts of data, or new applications with increased usages. So how does hyperconvergence address these types of challenges? So here are the 5 reasons that, in my opinion, many companies are looking towards hyperconvergence, convergence, and composable infrastructure to solve these types of challenges. And the first one here is improved efficiency. Hyperconvergent solutions typically reduce the number of hardware devices in the data center, and that provides for much more greater, administrative efficiency in the data center. And an example of that would be, let's say, removing a legacy storage array and folding that into the compute infrastructure, and thus reducing the data center footprint and everything that goes along with that. Also, unifying the administrative interfaces for storage and compute, for example, so that when virtual machines are provisioned, storage is just automatically provisioned along with that. Or when storage capacity or performance needs to be increased, it can all be done from a single interface. The end result is that hyperconverged infrastructure is easier to administer than infrastructures of the past, and that's good for us in IT, and it's good for the business. Another benefit of hyperconvergence is overall a reduction in costs, or lower costs. Because hyperconvergence is easier to administer, the cost of administering it is also lower than what we've traditionally seen in the past with a dedicated storage silo. With less administrative time being invested in administering, let's say storage, for example, that time can be better spent working on projects that offer a greater return for the business. And as we said, that's good for everyone, right? So less hardware in the data center equals less data center costs, and thus we can, hopefully lower our budgets or meet new challenges with the existing amount of money in our budget. And then simplified purchasing and support. Many hyperconvergent solutions make the support of the infrastructure easier. Perhaps a single phone number to call and a single place to buy additional infrastructure. And then added advanced functionality. Many hyperconvergent solutions provide some advanced functionality that you didn't have before. It could be high availability for the storage infrastructure. It could be built-in data protection or replication. There's all sorts of different advanced features that are built into many of these solutions we'll look at today. And then last benefit here that I wanted to highlight is improved performance and scalability. Many of these hyperconvergent solutions tout increased storage I/O performance and easy scalability as compared to solutions in the past. So I want to take a minute, to just kind of point out that for the sake of level setting, I took a very high-level approach and spoke very generally about hyperconvergence. So it's important to note that not every hyperconvergent solution works in the same way, which brings up an important question that I encourage you to try to answer during today's event, and that is, at the end of each presentation, will you have learned what makes each solution unique and different in the world of hyperconvergence? All right, so with that, let's go ahead and do a couple of quick poll questions here from the audience, or for the audience. And the first one is back to hyperconvergence. And the question here is on the screen. Why are you most interested in hyperconvergence, convergence, or composable infrastructure? And this is a multi-select question. So you can choose multiple solutions there, or multiple answers, and I'll share the results of that with you. So take a moment to answer that question if you would. All right, and let me share the results of that with you. And it looks like 46% said lower cost, 49% said they're looking for greater efficiency, 59% said improved scalability and performance. That's actually really interesting to me, that improved scalability and performance actually far outweighed efficiency and lower cost. 27% simplified purchasing, and 11% said other reasons. So thank you for answering that. That's very insightful. And then another question here, and this should be an easy one, that is, how many people work at your company? All right, so take a moment to answer that, and I'll share the results with you. And then after that, we'll jump into our first presentation from Unitrends. All right, let's see what the results of this one are. So the results are on the screen now. As you can see, 18% are at kind of mid-sized companies, 100 to 500 employees. 27% are at 10,000 plus employee sizes, and 8% are small companies, 1 to 25 employees. So thank you for answering that. We'll have a few more poll questions throughout the event, and I'll be sharing the answers to most of the poll questions with you. And with that, I'm excited to introduce Jordan Warsoff. Jordan is our first presenter on the event today. Jordan is a solutions engineer at Unitrends. Jordan, are you with us?
I'm here.
Thanks for being on the event today. Take it away.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It's kind of cool to be a part of the hyper-converged solution because you'd think that a backup product wouldn't necessarily be hyper-converged. That's not true. We actually pull a lot of the same ideas that you're looking at with doing that. It's interesting that one of the main things that came up wasn't necessarily ease of use, but scalability. And that's something that Unitrends tries to address head on. So we have a lot of threats facing us. There's less is more, and life is changing. You have a lot of data growth, you have a lot of ransomware, and you have a lot of downtime threatening you. So making sure you can scale and ensure that you don't have that downtime is kind of a vital part of what I think is today's hyper-converged story. One example, Delta Airlines had a large outage, but maybe you're not at that scale, maybe you are, but ensuring that you can protect the systems that you care about from not going down is exactly what the whole point of hyperconverged is. You want to make sure you're able to protect, you want to make sure you're able to scale up, and you want to make sure you can do it easily. And there's a lot of solutions out there that can do it. And the way I kind of like characterizing hyperconverged is like the iPhone. Now I know what you're thinking, like, what does the iPhone have anything to do with it? Well, it's an all-in-one solution. It kind of kicked off this whole thing, but at the consumer level. We took the camera, we took the phone, we took the music, took all of it, combined into one piece. Now you may say what you want about Apple, but they were the first ones to be able to do this and revolutionize it. Because even though BlackBerry was there first, even though Palm and HPOS were all there ahead of Apple, everyone knows that Apple iPhone is one of the most common phones today. And the reason for that, and the reason it kind of it exploded in the personal smart device market, is because they made it easy to use. And the fact that it's scalable just kind of helps with it. The fact that you can easily buy a larger iPhone and still use it for everything you need is just icing on the cake. So being able to manage both the ease of use and the broad array is really what the iPhone and what most hyperconverged try to approach. We kind of take that high-level approach. Why? What we do is with a hyperconverged solution, with a solution that's bringing you more, you need a solution that's going to be able to get you all these things. You need to reduce that finger pointing, increase your uptime, lower management, allow yourself to scale, give yourself some confidence, and allow yourself to have that free time. Because the one constant in today's day and age is time. We still have 24 hours a day. If anything, the days are getting slightly longer because Earth's rotation is slowing down, but I hear that's imperceptible to humans. It'll take a while before having an actual effect. Plus, we have all the leap years to keep it in line. But that idea of needing to kind of account for all of our hours means that we need to be able to do more in our given days, as we were kind of stating earlier. So how do you approach this? You need a solution that's simpler, and you need a solution that's not just simpler in day-to-day management, but simpler in utilization. So how do I use it? How am I going to work with it? How am I going to do all that stuff? That's exactly what the Unitrend solution can provide you for. And so let's kind of get into it. Unitrends, our whole goal is to ensure that you've got this enterprise backup and continuity, that we're able to go in, protect whatever comes up, recover whatever you may need, and kind of go from there. We're taking from this old world approach of this piecemeal and taking to the new world of hyperconverged. The old world being multiple different servers, multiple different vendors, multiple different hardware products that worked with software that didn't necessarily talk to each other. You had to set it up. You had to tune it. You had to customize it. And you had to have someone who was specialized in being able to do all of that. Then you had to use your backup solution for recovery. And it had limited continuity options. It would require your testing being done on your own manually. Maybe it required, it was a Windows deployment, which as we've seen, malware has been focusing on Windows recently. Not to mention the terrible customer support experiences. So many awful customers, not just in business backup and business continuity, but across the industry. We've seen these tales of, I have this, $1 million project, and I bought it, and we were told all these things, and now I need help actually using it or deploying it, and you get the runaround internationally over the phone. Unitrends tries to take you to a new world approach. We bring it all into one piece of hardware. We make it easy to use. We make it so there is less work, so you can just rack it up, connect it, and get on with your backups. Move on to far more exciting things. We provide a ton of different continuity options, recovery options, recover locally, recover to the cloud, be assured in your recovery. All of these are things that you wouldn't have thought of before. But now, without them, you're just spending more and more time in your backups and not more and more time in your production. Not to mention we have a secure Linux-built environment that we deploy on, so we're less susceptible to malware due to the lower surface area. And we have a unified and higher customer satisfaction experience where our customer support team is co-located with our development team in Columbia, South Carolina, where the company was founded. So we've been working with the same developers. People are hitting 10, 15, 20-year milestones with us, and they're learning and working together and making the product through a feedback system that is given from support to development, where development can then take these ideas, incorporate in the product, and then help teach our support team directly rather than have an indirect way of getting all that information. So a lot you're able to get and a lot of continuity we're able to provide. And Unitrends provides this an encouragement, because the whole point of the hyperconverged, the whole point that we take is to pursue simplicity. Because if you make it easier, if you take all this stuff on the left and you consolidate it on the right, you've got an easier solution to use, you've got a more confident solution, and it's easier to grow. I don't have to upgrade 9 different pieces. If something goes wrong, I don't have to call 9 different support lines. I can talk to one person and have it all upgraded. I can easily scale up, scale out, do whatever is needed. And that's kind of what Unitrends can provide, not to mention that awesome support team I was mentioning earlier. So, I know what you're thinking. Okay, Jordan, you've got all this stuff. I'm thinking mostly about my hyperconversion. I'm thinking about my infrastructure. What is the backup piece? Well, backups everywhere. And we're taking this hyper-converged idea to be able to not only be hyper-converged ourselves, but to protect hyper-converged environments. Unitrends already has great integration with VMware, Hyper-V, physical servers, but we also have integration with Nutanix, for example. So if you're going out with a Nutanix AHV, you're deploying with that, we can do snapshots of that. You're using some other vendor and you want us to protect the VMware on that hyperscale, not a problem. We've got all sorts of integration, even for stuff that does and doesn't have a standard hypervisor. And we can do this using hyperconverged principles. So for example, in this large red, this is our flagship approach, our product. 14 different appliances at scale and size, depending on how much you're trying to protect. The multiple appliances can be used together from a single pane of glass using that hyperconverged ideology. You go in, it's a single pane of glass. You can monitor and manage everything. Set up backups for your entire environment. It can be multiple sites. We can manage up to, I think, 10 or 100,000 appliances from a single pane of glass, and you can issue all the backups from recovery you need. You like this idea, you like this scaling philosophy, but you don't want to use our hardware? Not a problem. Bring your own hardware to Workday. We provide that. That's our software in the bottom left, our Unitrends backup software. Not to mention we have an Office 365 protection for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Exchange. And we also have a tool for spin up of VMs in AWS and Azure from a local environment. That's our Boomerang tool that can help with that. I know the clouds aren't quite that one, but that's exactly what we can provide in terms of local infrastructure. So let's kind of look at what Unitrends can back up. So it all begins by deploying. You deploy basically a base unit at every site you're trying to back something up at, whether it's a virtual appliance or a physical appliance. Here's where you get that hyper-converged idea. All of our appliances are networked together. So you're backing stuff up locally, and then you're sending it somewhere for that kind of recovery. So here, I've got the physical appliance on the right, the virtual appliance on the left. I can then start beginning backing up. I can protect physical servers, virtual machines, NAS devices, applications. All of this is at the OS level or the hypervisor level, but this integrates with the hyperscaler you're using. So with Nutanix, for example, we can be taking AHV snapshots, not just physical file level backups, but we offer you both options. For example, if you have an AD server in VMware and Windows both recommend not taking a snapshot, Unitrends could take a snapshot of it, or we can put an agent on there and back up the files. The choice is yours. Once we have the asset, is what we call it, where we're protecting at it. We can then begin the backup process. We back up the data across the local network onto the Unitrends appliance, physical or virtual. We can then deduplicate that in line, so all data hits the appliance as quickly as possible. We want to touch production as little as possible, because your production should be producing, and your business continuity should be, checking your continuity. Run all the backups, get the data to your Unitrends appliance. We will then inline deduplicate it and set it onto our storage, whether it's the storage you assigned or the storage that came with it. From there, all recoveries are on the table. We can recover individual files from any of the snapshots. We can recover whole machines. We can recover physical server images. We can recover snapshots. We can recover VMs. We can even set up standby VM replicas that can be spun up, and as long as it takes to turn on a VM. So if you lose server A, we can have a clone of server A running at your DR site, at a local site, wherever you want, ready to go in your kind of scenario. So we got the backups, we got the recoveries. That's great, but that's not everything. Look at copying the backups. So we got the backups, they're running. We need to copy them somewhere. One great option is some kind of local storage. Not very hyperscale solution, but not everyone can afford to be fully hyper-converged. That's exactly where this comes into play. Copy your backups to some kind of NAS that's local, or removable hard drives. Take those off-site, and you've got yourself a long-term and a model that's able to handle catastrophic loss of a site. Because you can take those hard drives, import them back to another Unitrends appliance, and you're good to go. You're able to recover those files, whole VMs, whole machines, whatever you need to do. We can even push some of this stuff to our cloud options. AWS, Rackspace, and Google Cloud can be pushed one way, set us up as a storage repository. We can send data sets off-site. That's not enough, though. You want to work on a full disaster recovery option where we can recover. We can do hot backup copies. With What this means is we are actively replicating the data using our WAN optimized replication that's built in. It's over a SSL VPN, so it's secure during transit. Send it to that secondary target, and then data can be spun up at that secondary site. You could do the private cloud where you manage both sites. You put in your own Unitrans appliance. Replication occurs between them, or one way. And the recoveries are all available at that second site. Set up a replica at your DR site using this. Or you can go with the Unitrans cloud. If you don't have a secondary site, we can be the secondary site for you. Send it to us. Not only will we keep your data offsite, we'll also keep it long-term. We offer plans which keeping a shorter retention is 90 days and as long as infinite years. We'll keep your yearlies forever and keep your most recent dailies, weeklies, and monthlies. From there, you can then recover into our cloud, whole VMs, with a guaranteed SLA, or if you ever want to, you can bring the data back either via a NAS that we ship to you or a download process. So that means that you can just be paying for the cloud. You can have a complete loss of that site, and we will seed and ship you a Unitrans appliance with all your data back on it, and we'll put it on an overnight shipping. So you can have your data back to you incredibly quickly, probably faster than you can get the servers you need to actually recover to. So that's our high-level solution. We easily are deployed with physical or virtual appliances, same software, same look, same feel, same capabilities. You then back up files, folders, VMs, snapshots, applications, whatever it may be. Send it then to local media, to off-site targets, and then recoveries are all available. All this can then be tested using recovery assurance to verify your recoverability, and you are good to move on with your day. So let's kind of look at what the Unitrans backup solution can be. So let's, let me make sure I got this right. Perfect. So here we can actually see our Unitrans dashboard. So this is a running instance of Unitrans. Here you can see I've got a dashboard of errors, what's protected, what's not being protected. Let's give it a sec to load up. There you go. So this is the dashboard you get. I can see the success, the transfer rates, any information I want available right here in this dashboard. The great news, you're sick of logging into Unitrans. I don't blame you. It's so cool, but you're like, I have other things to do. We'll email you almost all this information. You get an email that tells you the backup speed, size, all that information is available right here. Not to mention any jobs that are running, recovery assurance, so we're automatically testing my backups right here. This tells me whether or not within my RPO or RTO, the failure, the successes, and I can actually click through and view the details of any of this that's going on. Let's go through how we set it up. Just like a hyperconverged, I can add multiple appliances. In this case, we only have one to really manage. Let me see if this one has multiple. No, they both only have one, unfortunately. But if I had multiple appliances, I would be able to add them all here, just like that, and then I could easily manage and distribute the work among them. If I want to protect things, here's my protected assets. I can easily add hosts. You can see these VMware hosts. I can exchange servers, physical servers, virtual servers, whatever I need, I can add them all here. Once I've added the assets, and then I need to set up simple jobs. We can build out my own manual schedule where I set exactly when they run the backup. Let's say I'm going to do VMware for this case. Drop down the VMs, select which VMs I want to include as a part of this backup. I can edit and even select which virtual disks I want a part of this snapshot. So let's say I don't actually want to back up disk 3 on my file server, not a problem. Hit that, we're good to go. From here, I set up a schedule. By default, we do incremental forever. As I mentioned, we take one full backup. From there on out, we only back up the changes from the previous backup. We let the Unitrans appliance build out the synthetic folds and differentials. So basically what that means, you're going to make the backups even shorter by only backing up the littlest that's changed. But to make your recoveries not take forever, Unitrans will automatically build out folds for you periodically, so that way you don't have to worry about it. From here, once you have the schedule, you hit save. And boom, you got a schedule all set. You're ready to go. On top of that, let's say you don't want to build out a schedule and manually control it. We can do it based on a policy. Come here, select some physical servers you want to protect, and then set up your RPO. RPO, recovery point objective, the maximum amount of data according to timeline that you want to lose. Right here, by saying this for 12 hours, this means I'm willing to lose up to 12 hours of data. So if I had a fire, I don't want to have to recover anything older than 12 hours old. I can easily set this up here, and this will automatically build out the schedule for me, where I will set up and run the backups on X period of time. I can also set up my retention here or in other ways where I can say keep data for a minimum of this time, a maximum of this time, or warn me if X amount of time has passed. Easily adjustable and achieved right from within here. On top of that, we have other options too. You can actually, once your backups are running, I can view the status of them here under the Protect tab. Protect tab gives me a high-level overview of how the protection is going on each asset. So here I can see green check marks of success, yellow question marks of warning, red exclamations of failure. I can even click through and view the specific stats. So here's, for example, are my exchange groups. Doesn't look like I'm backing them up, but the exchange server itself is there as well. Let's see, I think Oracle I'm protecting right now. Here we go. So I can see my Oracle instance, and I can view if there were any errors. I can hit this, hit the detail, and I can see what errors occurred. It would show up right here. That easy and that effective. Let's say I actually want to recover something. I'm going to come over to the Recover tab. Recover tab gives me a catalog of everything I backed up recently, and I can view this from my multiple appliances, taking that hyperscale approach, hyperconverged hyperscale. I can come right in here, select a snapshot I want to recover, and I can recover individual files off of it, or do instant recoveries where I can do much faster recoveries by using the Unitrans appliance storage to transfer that to the secondary target. I simply select where I want it to go, the location, anything else that there's a switch I want to go to. And from here, simply hit save and I'll recover everything right to this target. Super easy and effective for being able to getting as much as possible and being able to pick my recoveries. Or if I just want to recover an individual file, I can do so by hitting the recover files. It'll mount it all internally and you can take care and recover the pieces you need. Real easy, and that's kind of the point. We'll make it as simple as possible to get as much of that as we can. So we got the protection. We got the recoveries. Now we need to see about how to get stuff offsite. That's as easy as setting up a backup copy job. We come right in here, select which assets we want to send to the secondary location. Boop, boop. And then from here, I can either build out a schedule. Let's say I'm doing NAS or like a hard drive copies. I come right into here, set up the schedule. It'll push it out on X period of time. So this, for example, is going to go every day at 3 a.m. If I just want to do it once a week, I can do that here, and I can even select how long I want to keep it for. So I want to retain it for 3 years. Set this up like this, hit save, you'll be good to go. If I want to replicate it, that occurs after every backup immediately. You simply come right here, set this up. You notice there's nowhere else to do it. I can then come in and configure how much bandwidth to utilize. So here I can come in, configure bandwidth. Here it looks like we got 50% Monday through Friday, 100% some other times. So you can kind of see I can set up what period of time I want to use or use my replication bandwidth, and that way it just follows this. So the data is replicated as quickly as possible, and I get the data to me as soon as possible. But it's kind of this approach where I can pick and choose the recovery, the sets, and how often I want to replicate it. Last, and certainly not least thing I want to show you is kind of a bunch of reports. I can see my protection policies, what's protected, what's being backed up, but most importantly, my compliance report. This report, we kind of saw this, tells me my success and failure of testing my recoveries. Now, when I say test my recoveries, I don't just mean, hey, I backed up successfully, that was good. It doesn't just mean, hey, let's see the login screen. This actually will go in and test your application capabilities, making sure that that your applications work, that your recovery is functional in one of those periods of time, that you know you can recover, you know that you're good to go, and that's exactly what the recovery assurance can provide. It provides you with a compliance report that tells you how long your recovery is going to take and how old the data is. And you can use all this from right within here and get the information to kind of get that. So here, for example, I'm going to put in all my RPO and RTO, and I can see it actually took 3 minutes, and I was allowing for 4 hours for my RTO. And all that information is available right here. The click of a button, that can even be emailed out. So a lot of stuff we were able to see, and a lot of stuff hopefully they will show you with the demo. Basically, the idea is Unitrans trying to provide a lot. You're going to provide one vendor, that hyper-converged vendor, that provides less work when actually physically backing up and recovering things, providing that local and cloud continuity with recovery assurance. So you know that you can recover no matter the circumstance, and it's a secure, purpose-built Linux program with an awesome customer support team. And that's really the main what Unitrends can provide. We try to provide a holistic solution that I think can meet your needs, that can scale easily by adding appliances or upgrading appliances, and allow you to make it much easier, much more effective when doing your protection and recoveries, whatever needs you may have. So with that, I want to thank everyone for their time and interest in Unitrends. I'll go ahead and turn it over, see if we have any questions I can answer now. But other than that, thank you so much, and hopefully you can see as you're starting to explore your hyperconverged solutions, making sure you have the means and the need to be able to protect them as well. Thank you so much, and let's take it away with some Q&A if we have time for that.
Yeah, excellent presentation. Thanks, Jordan. Let's go ahead and do some Q&A, and while we do that, I'm going to pop up a poll question here for the audience. The question on your screen is, how much data do you back up? I'll just leave that up while we do some Q&A from the audience. If you have questions, now is the time to ask them for Unitrends. So let's see, Jordan, first question here I see is, can Unitrends back up to AWS? And if so, is it S3 or some other AWS service?
Yep, so AWS S3 is supported. We basically can deploy our appliance within AWS S3, so you back up locally and then replicate it up to S3, or you can back up instances running in AWS and then replicate them back down to local or go across the clouds. But yeah, it does require an EC2 instance and S3 storage. Just like you would locally, you need a VMware host to run that software or our physical appliance.
Okay, cool. And another question here, how does Unitrends understand or recognize any of the workloads that are being backed up, or do we, as administrators, tell it essentially like how to access the SQL account, for a SQL server? How does that work?
Great question. So yeah, the Unitrends will automatically detect that there's SQL installed on that server. But you'll need to pick which databases or which servers need to actually be protected. You'll create a SQL job, you'll set up a schedule for actually backing those up, and you'll check them off. You can work with your DBA. You can even give your DBA access to only the SQL server, and you can have them control the backup schedules and all that stuff. Let them do the backups and recoveries, and you don't have to worry about it. We do also offer that granular control that integrates with AD.
Very nice. Another question here, what hypervisors are supported by Unitrends?
Sure. Out of the box, we support VMware, Hyper-V, Citrix Zen Server, and Nutanix AHV. That's for snapshot integration. We also offer agent-based OS level protection for almost every single hypervisor. We have over 200 different operating systems ranging from Windows NT to HPUX to iSeries to SCO to SUSE to SLES and everything in between, Mac as well.
Nice. And what about, they're asking here about deduplication and encryption.
Sure. So we kind of mentioned the deduplication. We have inline deduplication. That's global across everything you're backing up on the appliance. In terms of encryption, I don't want to get too deep into it. We have SSL VPN end-to-end replication, so you're encrypting your data in transit. In terms of data at rest, we do also offer AES 256 encryption. Make sure you keep your keys. Our support team does not have a backdoor because we want this to be a secure solution. So, make sure you follow best practices with that.
Good tip. Another question here. Matthew here is asking, are Office 365 backups available in the software-only version?
Yeah, so the Office 365 backup is actually, we're partnering with Spanning. So we fully support it, we fully license it and everything like that. You get the same great software, but we actually support it because we figured why should we reinvent the wheel when someone's done the best job out there. So you can go in, it's a cloud-to-cloud solution, so you will log into a portal, but it's all managed and all controlled from like the same kind of ideology of like hyperscale. So yes, it's available with the software only. Yes, it's available with the hardware only. And in fact, you can buy it as a standalone if you're even interested in that. Definitely reach out to one of our Unitrends representatives who cares about what we can do with your Office 365 environment.
Okay, excellent. Let me advance this slide here and show the audience the results of this poll question. So it looks like 33% out there are backing up 25 plus terabytes, and it goes all the way down to 5% that are backing up up to 2 terabytes. So a real good mixture. of data sets being protected on the event today. And let me pop up another poll question, and then we'll do some more audience questions. So the question on the screen now is, would you like to be one of the first to hear more about Unitrends? Go ahead and answer that question. And let's see, Jordan, another question that came in here, is there any offering related to training for Unitrends? If someone wants to get training, what do you recommend?
Yeah, sure. So we have a full suite of online courses ranging from what the heck is Unitrends to how do I administer Unitrends. It's available for free in our customer portal. You simply can log in and view, what the basics of Unitrends, our terminology and stuff like that, all the way to how to administer specific backups, set up schedules, and all those other kind of fun and recoveries and things you might want to be able to do.
Nice.
So,
nice.
Yeah.
And then last question we probably have time for is, how do people typically get started with Unitrends? What do you recommend?
Sure. Best way, if this looks like something that's of interest to you, check out our website, unitrends.com. Right there in a big red button on the top, it says free trial. It's a 30-day full-featured trial. You can access our awesome support team, whatever you want with it. Check it out, deploy it in your environment at VMware, Hyper-V, Citrix Zen Server, or Nutanix HV will be coming out soon. Deploy it, test out the backup, see how it backs up, see how it recovers. We can even work out and have someone work out an evaluation with you. So you can work with a member of our evaluation team, and do all the kind of backups and recovery testing you might want and see how that works for you. Set up your backups and stuff like that. That's kind of the best way to start, and then we'll follow up with you and see if you're interested or some of the other options out there. But that's kind of my best first step approach, is check out our free trial and test it out in your own home lab or whatever you may want.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks so much for being on today, Jordan. Great presentation.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. For those out there in the audience, if you haven't answered that question on the screen, I'll just leave it up. Would you like to be one of the first to learn more about Unitrends? And I'll leave that up while I announce our first set of prize winners. So our first Sonos audio bundle is going out to Josh Bickle from Oregon. Congratulations, Josh. And our first Amazon $500 gift card is going out to Krishna Yanika from Virginia. Congratulations, Krishna and Josh. All right, so with that and our prize announcement, it's now time for the next presentation on today's Hyperconvergence Megacast. I'm excited to introduce Mr. Doug Chamberlain. He is a Senior Product Marketing Manager at NetApp. Are you there, Doug?
I am. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being on. Take it away.
All right, and thanks for having me today. Again, it's great to be part of this group and talking to you a little bit more about what's going on in the HCI, CI, and composable infrastructure space. And I'd like to talk to you today about NetApp's Hyperconverged, our NetApp HCI platform. But I really want to talk specifically about a use case that we find is really compelling for our architecture. We're designed for a mixed workload, and end-user computing is often a problem that is challenging for people to address because it is a mixed workload. And I want to talk a little bit more about what it means to do this virtualized end-user computing. We'll talk about some of the challenges, and then talk more about the design of the NetApp HCI platform and how it really aligns with some of the challenges that we face trying to address these very mixed workload environments like end-user computing. And then, of course, we want to end and answer as many questions as we can. So I want to start off by really talking about the big challenge we have, and that's what's the digital worker today. It used to be that we could get to the point where virtual desktops would allow people to come into their office and do, and from an operational expense standpoint, a CapEx standpoint, we'd be able to lower the cost of the desktop that they were using. But when we look at the digital worker today, it's not just about the desktop, it's about the application. Is it available on the tablet or my phone? It's really making sure that I understand that people are trying to collaborate much more. We really are looking at how teams can share data and work together, and really look at that digital transformation as how people are looking at enabling a workforce in a different way today than they have in the past. And that means to start really thinking about some different types of solutions. So when we look at kind of the evolution of kind of how things have gone, virtual desktops and VDI environments have been around for quite some time. This is really when we're talking about a very desktop-centric solution. I just want to have a desktop for, my task worker, for my call center, for, maybe I have some knowledge workers that are doing a little bit more engineering work, but I want to give them a virtual desktop environment because it gives me better control of security or better control of cost. And I'm really focusing more on the cost side of this, right? I want to make sure that I can support maybe the high-end graphics that I need, but what it ended up being is every time I have a different group of workers that are using virtual desktops, I spin up a new pod architecture, right? I understand exactly how to size a group of servers and storage and networking in a way that I can support a certain type of desktop. And I want to make sure that it doesn't interfere with other workers, and therefore, if I have a new type of worker, I will put them on a different pod architecture. So yes, we were able to deliver really good virtual desktop performance, but we were really losing that data sharing. We're losing the ability to actually integrate systems a little bit better. There was no consolidation. With end-user computing, we're trying to move beyond that, right? It's not just about the desktop. It's multiple desktop types. It's applications. It's databases. It's really bringing it all into one place. And also being able to look forward to how I could actually make this more cloud hosted, right? And the desktop as a service market. So when we look at end user computing, the key is that we're moving past just the virtual desktop. We're trying to do multiple desktop types. We're trying to do applications that the end users are interfacing with. We're using the databases that they're tying into, bringing them all into a single platform in a way that multiple workloads can be shared in a single platform, but without interfering with each other, so I can get the most out of not only my efficiencies from my compute and storage platform, but also being able to make sure that I can share data and more efficiently manage this entire environment for the end user rather than just focusing on the desktop. But there's a lot of business challenges that are faced as we try to do this, right? There's a lot of complexity here. So we have multiple teams involved from a business standpoint. How do I deal with all these independent purpose-built platforms? I've got a virtual desktop platform for one type of desktop, for a second type of desktop. I've got my database environment that I've optimized. I've got some applications that I've tuned a certain way. I've got all these different independent platforms. How would I share data, right? Because none of these things are integrated together. And as I look at the digital workforce today, the digital worker has to integrate with a number of different systems. And at the end of the day, from a business standpoint, the move to end-user computing may sound good on paper, but when I look at my ability to get to value and actually explore what I can do bringing it all together, it takes a very long time. And certainly as a technologist, I'm looking at some of these challenges, right? If I know that I'm having a problem with a desktop or an application, there's a lot of re-architecture that I may have to do to make sure I can optimize this, right? I think a lot of people looked at, moving from Windows 7 to Windows 10. Oh gosh, now I need more GPU available just because there's kind of a native requirement for Windows 10. How do I re-architect these pods that I've created? And if I'm trying to actually blend these workloads together, now all of a sudden I have workloads that are competing for resources because the desktops may be very unpredictable, but that unpredictability with boot storms or how they're being used can't impact my database as it's running. My database is my corporate source of knowledge. I can't have that slowing down just because a database or a group of workers is starting together. And then you've got all the idea of, well, how do I manage all the data going from platform A to platform B to platform C and all that integration? And at the end of the day, when I'm trying to look at how do I store all this data, how do I integrate all these things, it's just too stinking complex for us to really be able to say, I can do an end-user compute initiative. So now we look at what we've done in building the NetApp HCI platform, and what we believe really leans itself to being able to support this end-user compute and mixed workload challenge, right? We need to have that operational simplicity, right? That's kind of the promise of hyperconverged is this operational simplicity, and if I'm doing all these end-user environments, I do need to have some sort of simplicity there. And I also have to have predictable performance. If I have 2 or 3 different types of desktops that are kind of competing with each other for resources, and then I have the database or other applications, I need to know that if I'm going to bring them onto a single platform, I can predict that each application will work as promised. as delivered, as necessary for my workforce to be successful. And I also need to know that I have a way to migrate data and make sure that I have some multi-platform data mobility. And all these are packaged together in the NetApp HCI platform. So when we're talking about delivering end-user compute, right, this multiple set of workloads, bringing it together so our workforce can actually be much more integrated, how do I do this, and what are the benefits of using the NetApp HCI platform? Right, so when we look at operational simplicity, predictable performance, and multi-platform data mobility, we're going to kind of focus on kind of the features that are automated, that are predictable, and what's integrated with the NetApp HCI platform. Let's start out with the automation, right? I mean, we know that hyperconverged needs to be easy. It needs to be something that I can control without getting a new PhD in another type of technology. When we look at what we built in the NetApp HCI platform, it is scalable but independently of each other. So my compute is scalable different from my storage. So if I know that I may start and just say I'm going to do one desktop type. Now I need to add another desktop type, and I know I've got plenty of storage, but I just need more compute, right? I just need more horsepower. I don't need to buy extra storage as I'm scaling this up. So I may focus on just buying new compute nodes to actually address that new workload. And then over time, I may add more storage as well. But the fact is that I can actually really prescriptively scale the platform. All this is done automatically, right? So it's not one of those things where I have to have system downtime. I'm adding new nodes to the existing system. I can grow it as much as I want and do this all non-disruptively. I can go up to 64 compute nodes, 40 storage nodes. I don't have to worry about, gosh, do I have new technology that I have to rebuild? No. You have a new CPUs that we can add to the platform, new storage capacities and performance we can add to the platform. Doing it independently gives you a lot more capability and a lot more flexibility in how you might grow the system over time. All this is automated. All this is something that doesn't require expertise at all. When you look at how we're actually scaling this system, especially on the storage side, this is one of the things that a lot of people ask, well, what happens, right? If we know that storage has been a problem in the virtualized environment before, how do I deal with this, right? And so what we've done is actually created an environment where the storage is actually a pool itself. And by pooling the storage resources, it allows us to be able to allow the users to manage and maintain the data storage without a great deal of complexity at all, right? So we have exactly what we need available when I'm actually creating a new environment. I'm saying I have a new group of desktops, I need a new application that needs storage, I need to expand the storage that's existing on the application that I'm using. It's very simple to do. The storage, all the complexity of actually the storage architecture is built in. I don't have to think about it. All I have to know is, do I have enough storage available and can I consume it? And all these changes that are going to happen to expanding the capacity or even shrinking the capacity will be done automatically for you. And again, we're scaling this storage independently of the compute platform. So we do get a lot of extra flexibility. Of course, we're really focused on making sure this is easy to use. NetApp HCI is going to ship with VMware's vSphere. So I'm going to use vCenter and the vSphere web client to be able to go ahead and manage all this. And so all of the compute and the storage resources are all managed through vSphere. It's very nice because therefore I don't have to really train in a lot of new environments, right? The majority of the virtualization world has been at least familiar with VMware, if not operating very substantially in VMware environments. And so not a lot of new tools to use. I can easily create new virtual machines. I can add my virtual storage. I can create all of these things together. I can use storage policy-based management to make sure that my storage performance is keeping up with my compute performance. Makes it very, very easy to modify and manage what's happening at that layer, because that is often a complex layer for people to manage. And if you're really trying to optimize virtualization, you need to know that the storage can keep up with what you're doing at the compute layer, and that's built into the NetApp HCI platform. Next, let's look at predictability. And this is really the big challenge when I'm doing a mixed workload environment like end-user computing, right? We know that we have different desktop types that have different performance requirements. We know that we have databases that can't be interfered with if they're running. We also have other applications that we're going to try to bring together. So we need to know that every time we act an application, we're going to get predictable performance. we're not going to have this interference from the other workloads. So how is it that I can deliver that with the NetApp HCI platform? So when we look at the provisioning model and what we're doing in our Element OS software that's actually running the storage tier, which is really the more difficult way, when you look at the architecture, that's the most difficult place to really control the performance. I know that at the compute layer, I can set up a certain amount of memory that's going to be isolated to a virtual machine. I can do, the virtual CPUs, and I can add more cores, but outside of that, the real challenge is then, can the storage keep up and make sure that it's delivering the data as it needs to that virtual machine? So with our model, when we're provisioning the storage, we're basically saying, hey, just like you would assign a CPU and memory, that's how you're going to assign how much storage you need and how fast it's going to go. And when we do that, we're actually assigning a minimum and maximum value of performance to that storage. So if I know that I need the storage performance to be at a certain level of IOPS, I can guarantee that I'm going to get that from what I'm allocating from the NetApp HCI platform, right? And if I know that I have storage performance changes that I need to make, I can do them instantly. It's all programmatically, right? Again, it's automated. I can just say, I need this to go faster. This virtual machine, I just added more memory and more CPU, and I need the storage to make sure it goes as fast as it needs to. I can instantly make those changes. And while I'm making those changes, again, just like I'm isolating memory to a certain virtual machine, I'm isolating storage to a certain virtual machine as well. So each of those IOPS that I've allocated to a virtual machine are protected from interference from other workloads, right? And so what I have is the ability to not only isolate them, but also change them on the fly. So if I know that I'm actually running up against my maximum, I want to be able to change that, and I can change that instantly. That quality of service that I can change allows me to know that as I see virtual machines that need more performance at the compute layer, I can tune up the storage performance as well. Or if I know that my compute layer is fine and I need more storage performance, I can do that as well. And to be able to do this on the fly, right through the vCenter interface, and be able to instantly change my storage performance. It's really important to understand that this is then giving each of the type of applications that I'm looking at in my end user environment their own protected level of performance, right? And which makes it very, very predictable. I know that I've given my Horizon View instance a certain amount of performance and a certain amount of capacity. When I add app vols or some user profile data, or I'm adding databases, I know that neither is it taking from the existing desktop environment, nor is the desktop environment going to impact the new application that I'm adding as well. Right? So when we're talking about this discrete storage performance, it means that we know both the compute and the storage can deliver the performance that they need, and to be able to predictably add new workloads without interfering with the existing workloads. That's very, very important in this environment. So as we look to what we're trying to accomplish with this, it's really important that end-user computing is a platform where we need to mix all these workloads, and now I have a platform that will allow me to confidently mix all these different workloads together. The last piece we want to talk about is this integration. And so one of the things that NetApp is really focused on is what we call the NetApp Data Fabric. And when you're looking at what that NetApp Data Fabric does, it actually gives us tools that help us control and manage how we move data around different platforms. This can be using the file services found in NetApp's ONTAP software, data protection services that we have that allow you to send data off to the cloud and come back, looking at replication, looking at other pieces like Storage Grid, which gives us a local and tied into Amazon S3 and other external sources to be able to do object storage. We have backup and recovery tools, again, that can give you local and cloud-connected backup and recovery. So all these sorts of tools that are integrated in a way that I can look at my data management and migrating across different data storage platforms, both on-prem and in the cloud. We have tools to actually help you manage that as well. So not only am I talking about bringing all the components that I need for an end-user environment into a single platform, we're actually talking about how then I can actually integrate with the other data sources I may have in the organization or outside, as we're looking at how we're dealing with our hybrid data models of the future. So looking at all that together, then what can I expect from an EUC initiative outcome if I'm looking at actually being able to deliver kind of against these promises, right? And so when we look at this mixed workload end user compute environment and having a platform that can actually support this, right? Not only can I incrementally scale the platform, either compute or storage, to make sure that every time that I'm adding a new workload, a new application, new database, if I need to scale just the compute, I can scale just the compute for the virtual machines. If I need to scale additional storage, I can, again, scale that independently of the other. So I have the flexibility, I have the capability to grow. I'm also looking at making sure that I can deliver predictable performance. I need to know that each new workload will not take resources from an existing workload. And each new workload will be able to have its own predictable performance, right? So I can guarantee that my end users are not going to see a decrease in performance from their standpoint when I'm adding these new applications and new workloads. All I'm doing is really integrating them together in a single platform. And to be able to rapidly change and make sure that I can address how demands are going to shift, and what new applications are coming up, how am I going to move data from another platform into this platform, to be able to really address that in a way that allows me to confidently say I can use a hyperconverged infrastructure platform for a true mixed workload environment that's going to be business critical to a lot of our organizations. Also want to look at just kind of what this means, right? So if I'm talking about untethering the digital workspace, I'm really talking about making sure that I understand how I can do this, right? How do I empower this collaboration? By having my data and my desktops and my applications all in a single platform, it really does help me make sure that I can accelerate the rate of collaboration, right? By not having to worry about, well, I've got 7 different platforms. How do I move data? Now we're just talking about the fact that it's all stored in the same place. Now, how do I share it? And that becomes less of a challenge when I'm looking at what I'm doing with NetApp HCI and really enabling that digital transformation so people are coming out the other side saying, I actually have a solution. I know how I'm going to be able to perform. I know how I'm able to, kind of achieve those business objectives, and to have a platform that allows me to, have that simplicity of HCI, but that enterprise scale that I need to truly deliver to an end user computing environment. Right, so hopefully that's at least a good background that gives you an idea of what do we mean by end-user computing. Why is NetApp HCI something that is a different platform that can enable this to actually deliver mixed workloads, and hopefully we have some questions.
Yeah, great presentation, Doug. We do have some questions here for you from the audience. So let's see. First question that came in is, how do I determine which applications to include when I'm rolling out a new EUC or VDI deployment?
So that's a great question because, again, I think a lot of people say, well, I know how to do the desktop, but what comes next? A lot of times what we'll find is, let's pick that tier 2 or tier 3 application where you're getting the most trouble tickets, right? Pick an application that you know is really giving you a problem, and that would probably be your first one to try to move over, right? And look at how do we tune this up. If I know that, I've done the virtual desktop and all of a sudden, this tier 3 application is now giving people all sorts of headaches because it's not responding, let's go ahead and put it on that platform, right? Let's give it the power of flash, give it all the compute resources that it needs, give it the opportunity to keep up with those virtual desktops. And so, see if that really helps. And that can be a way to really, on one hand, reduce the impact on your support organization, but also really deliver to the end user something that they're going to be able to use to improve their daily operations.
Okay. And let's see, another question here. Are there limitations to the types of applications that NetApp HCI will support? Do you just recommend VDI, or does it work for all applications?
Absolutely. It does work for any virtualized application, right? And so the point being that you may start with the desktop, but you want to get to the databases and those homegrown applications or those other business systems that you want to bring over, right? If you can run it in a virtual environment, you're going to be able to run it in the NetApp HCI platform. And the idea is that you want to bring these all together, right? You don't just want to focus on one type. You want to be able to run them all, right? And so if you can run it in VMware, you can run it on NetApp HCI. We also have some other options if you're running, on an external platform that you want to connect to our storage model. Lots of other options, but certainly, look at the fact that if you can run it in a virtual environment, you can run it on the NetApp HCI platform.
Okay. And at the beginning of the event here, I talked about how hyperconvergence normally allows you to, consolidate interfaces. Does NetApp have a separate storage management interface to control storage performance?
No, it's all integrated in what we do with vSphere. And so again, NetApp HCI, we ship with, running vCenter. And so when I can, so vSphere is running on the platform. I have vCenter as my management interface. It's my management interface for my compute and my storage. So I don't need to use a new interface. I don't need to learn new tools. All of the capabilities of the storage are directly integrated in with vCenter.
Okay, nice. And here's a question you might want to highlight. I think you covered it, but might be good to reiterate. Is this based on FlexPod, or is this something new they're asking?
No, that's a fantastic question, and NetApp has had a great history with our FlexPod converged infrastructure offering. The NetApp HCI platform is a brand new offering. It is based on using the tenets of hyperconverged, right? Being much more simple to use, really focused on the usability, and not FlexPod is a great solution, but again, it's more of a converged infrastructure where I need to understand all the different components and how they go together, right? It gives you great reference architectures, or we may ship out all the components for you to put together, but it's designed in a way that you can be much more prescriptive in choosing best of breed. With hyperconverged, the whole point is to not have to become an expert in networking, in compute, in storage. It's all built together as a single platform, and this is very different from the FlexPod offering. It is its own platform. It is designed by NetApp. It uses not only VMware's software at the hypervisor and compute layer, but then the NetApp Element OS storage software from the SolidFire side. And so it's a very unique offering. It is completely different from a FlexPod. It is designed to be a true hyperconverged in the sense of, it has the ease of use. It's really not requiring you to be an expert. It's really built on those tenets to give you the scalability and the ease of use that you need from a hyperconverged infrastructure platform.
Excellent. Well, I think that's all the time we have for the live Q&A, but there's a lot more questions for you there electronically in the queue, a lot of really good technical questions that maybe you can follow up on. Thanks for being on today, Doug. Absolutely.
Thanks for having me, and appreciate your time.
For more information on NetApp, of course, visit netapp.com. Also, check out the resource that's there available in your console from NetApp to learn specifically more about the NetApp HCI solution. All right, with that, it's time for another prize giveaway. While I announce our next set of prize winners, I'm going to pop up the next poll question on the screen. That question is, what is your industry vertical? And you may need to scroll down using the scroll bar on the right side of the slide window to see all the different industry verticals. Okay, so our next grand prize, the Sonos speaker audio bundle, is going out to Tim Bonsoe, B-O-N-S-O-E, from Illinois. Congratulations, Tim. And the next Amazon $500 gift card is going out to James Smith from Arizona. Congratulations, James Smith from Arizona, on winning your gift card, and Tim from Illinois on winning a Sonos speaker bundle. All right, if you haven't answered that question on the screen, I ask you to do it now because I'm about to share the results. And it looks like, as I predicted, we have a wide variety of different verticals represented on the event today. But let's kind of scroll down and take a look at what are some of the top verticals. So we have 11% healthcare being represented today, 26% technology, and 9% manufacturing. And then if you add up all the different state and local governments, that's actually well over 10% there. 5% retail, 4% energy. So real good breakdown here of companies being represented. Thank you for answering that poll question. And with that, I'm honored to introduce Miriam Senglaji, who is a Principal Product Marketing Manager at Nutanix. Miriam, are you with us?
Yes.
Thanks for being on the event today. Take it away. Tell us about Nutanix.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Nutanix webinar. So in this webinar, I'm going to talk about Nutanix as a hyperconverged platform and how it's enabling you to have a cohesive stack across all your clouds. So just getting started on that, let's take a step back and kind of see that why are a lot of enterprises moving to cloud. So we have identified few areas where it's important for the IT infrastructure and why cloud is such an appealing option for them. For example, internal IT consumers need infrastructure that is provisioned in minutes, not in weeks or months. And if they do not do that, then the line of business will go around them and basically start public cloud services. Then they will leave them with IT shadow issues. Then they want a solution that is simple to deploy, manage, and scale. Like, for example, one-click operations for all common workloads. And this is like the experience of the consumer IT. Most operations, for example, on our phones are done in a single click, and it's usually like intuitive. So for the infrastructure, they want that to be operated by IT generalists, not multiple teams of specialists. Then cloud also has a set of new business expectations. For example, organizations will no longer tolerate to pay the expensive cost of over-provisioned data centers. They want services only when they need them, and they want to pay only when they use them, like a fractional consumption model. Also, they expect continuous innovation, new features and capabilities rolled in frequently and non-disruptively, and with no maintenance windows. And this is the customer requirement, and these customer requirements have set the expectation of what data centers and cloud architectures must deliver going forward. So if you look at like most of the data centers, at least when we talk to most of the customers, there is not just one single data center. So first, the most customers' first experience with the cloud infrastructure is actually through a public cloud service. And we know that because majority of our customers are using a public cloud service today, or they're planning to do so. And what are the benefits? They're very obvious: elasticity, flexible consumption model, pay as you go, OpEx, simple, don't need specialized IT teams. And then there is their private data centers that most of the IT consumers, they want a cloud-like experience within their own data centers or with their private cloud. So the majority of applications in a typical enterprise are more predictable. For example, you know resource requirements over time, you can forecast growth with some confidence. So you want to make sure that your mission-critical applications are delivered with high performance and a lower TCO than a public cloud. Then there is a distributed cloud. So should your cloud stop at your main data centers, or it should extend to like isolated environments? You can think about retail, oil rigs, cruises, airplanes, and way more. So, and now that with the whole essence of having IoT and the growing of number of intelligent devices, there is an increasing need to actually move the intelligence to the edge servers and the edge clouds as well, to make sure that you are supporting the new type of application. So if you think about it, the customers are evolving in a multi-cloud environment today. So what it means is that often companies look at public or hybrid clouds to kind of solve this agility problem on-prem. But unfortunately, this adds additional segmentation and expertise required to properly manage all these clouds. For example, management becomes fragmented. You need trained team to use AWS, Azure, gateways, vSenders, UCS Director, and multiple cloud increases management complexity. And also, like, they have different consumption model. One is pay as you go, 3 to 5 years deferred. So then there is the problem with achieving a consistent experience across all your clouds. So let's look at how Nutanix Foundation is built for having to deliver an enterprise cloud. So we built Nutanix Enterprise Cloud with a single cohesive stack that integrates all infrastructure resources with a scalable management plane for managing both infrastructure and applications. It is built on the most advanced and popular hyperconverged foundation, which I'm going to go on I'm going to look at each step of the stack. And Nutanix also brings you the freedom of choice. So brings you the freedom to use any type of hypervisor that you're using. If you want to use VMware EXSI, there is the opportunity. Hyper-V, there is the opportunity. And also Nutanix provides its own free hypervisor, which is AHV. So let's take a step back and look at like how this hyperconverged infrastructure was built. So the core to the enterprise cloud is what we call hyperconvergence. Instead of standalone storage networking, and server infrastructure, HCI converges all of them into a simple software-defined stack. This solution is actually built on web-scale technologies that power some of the largest data centers on the planet. While HCI is a category that is pretty popular now, and what truly differentiates Nutanix is that it is 100% distributed system with no single point of failure, with unlimited scalability and support for any use case. For example, deployments can start with a single node and can scale up to hundreds of nodes seamlessly. Performance and capacity grow over time as a node is added. And depending on what you need, the node can be compute heavy or storage heavy or a combination of both. So as we move up the stack, then there is the core HCI solution will also work across multiple hypervisors. So as I mentioned, Hyper-V, VMware vSphere, Citrix, XenServer, and enables users to continue using the hypervisor of their choice. And bringing that freedom of choice from Nutanix is the most important thing for the customers. And also, on top of that, we provide AHV, which is our Nutanix hypervisor. And bringing this hypervisor, it is important because now we have much more flexibility and we can introduce much more efficiency into the stack as well. For example, AHV provides all the essential virtualization features, and it's tightly integrated with our Prism management, which manages the infrastructure to provide an enterprise-grade virtualization solution without requiring a suite of management and monitoring tools like traditional enterprise virtualization solutions. So as we move up the stack, then it's the one-click operation. So whether it is day 0, day 1, or day n, Nutanix makes one-click operations possible through Prism and uses machine learning to power intelligent one-click operations. For example, the push for improving efficiency, reducing TCO, and assuring service quality has led to an acute need for automation in the data centers, and we know that. And it's challenging to fulfill this need with the explosion of the amount of machine data that needs to be analyzed, optimized, and therefore you need optimized data center operations. So for example, in our Prism, we provide capacity planning or just-in-time forecasting. And with using internally with our machine learning algorithms, we can forecast and let you know when you would run out of capacity and when it's the time for you to add an additional node. And all these machine learning and intelligence is natively integrated to the stack, and that's what really differentiates Nutanix from other hyperconverged solutions. Then it comes to networking. Obviously, the next piece is that you have to worry about, for example, your fiber channel networking. So our solution does not really stop there. So you can use the top of the rack switch, like 1 gigabit, 10 gigabit switches that are already there, and you don't need extra networking. And we also don't stop there in our Prism. You have the end-to-end network visibility, and you're able to view connectivity of your virtual machines to the underlying networking and the health of the connection as well. Common networking issues related to VLAN, misconfigurations, downports, manual configuration issues can be quickly diagnosed and rectified. And then we have network automation and orchestration through service insertion, service chaining, as an automatic configuration of network services based on changes in the app environment. And then also securing the east-west traffic in networking through a native micro-segmentation solutions that we offer. So then now that we have the foundation solid, we made infrastructure management one click, but that kind of doesn't end there. We know that applications are what drives the business. And with the growing sprawl and complexity of operations, application-centric management is required. So now we bring in application automation to make sure that you can add policy-based governance and self-service capabilities to your consumers of IT. And this is very powerful because you can also manage how your applications are being deployed at different times and make sure that automation is there to avoid any human errors. And then, obviously, since most of the customers have multi-cloud environments, being able to bring that seamless stack across all the clouds. So, for example, if you're using Azure or AWS, making sure that you don't need specialized team to manage those environments. So bringing in the multi-cloud management and also kind of abstracting applications from the cloud infrastructure itself. So as I went through the whole stack, this solution is what we call Enterprise Cloud Operating System. And it's the turnkey. It is working for our it's working for all of our customers. So now let's look at what is. I'm kind of going in more detail into how our system is scalable and has a distributed design. So if you look at the architecture, the Nutanix is deployed as a cluster of servers or nodes, starting with at least 3. Each node has a CPU, memory, flash storage, or hard disk drive, and a hypervisor pre-installed. You can change the hypervisor if you want to EXXi, Hyper-V, or the hypervisor of your choice. So the nodes are connected to each other over 10 gigabit Ethernet switch. Any standard switch will do. Nutanix software runs in a user mode VM called the controller VM on each node of the cluster. And the controller VM or CVMs talk to each other to create a single storage pool using storage drives of all the nodes in the cluster. This is the distributed storage fabric, or what Nutanix calls DSF. So DSF distributes data and metadata across all the nodes in the cluster and provides enterprise features such as deduplication, compression, cloning, tiering, and resilience in a truly distributed way with no single point of failure or hotspots in the cluster. This scale-out architecture allows you to grow the cluster by adding nodes when needed without limits. You get linear, predictable performance, and capacity increases as the cluster grows. So the Nutanix solution delivers data locally to provide the best VM and cluster performance. All I/O requests from a VM are handled by a controller VM on that node. When a VM writes data, one copy of the data is always written to the local node. That way, read requests can be handled immediately and increases your application performance. Also, Nutanix solution is 100% software defined and doesn't rely on custom hardware for any capabilities. Current Nutanix customers get the benefits of the software innovation by installing the latest software release on a single stack, by a single click, sorry. So now, talking about the architecture itself, let's kind of take a step back and look at Nutanix. So we know most of our customers or applications are using legacy type of storage. So in a way, Nutanix wanted to bring the whole distributed, scale out, the power of that, but also provides an easy way for customers to integrate. So that's why we have file services. We have block services and also support for persistent storage for containers. And as of that, we can support many different type of workloads and storage requirements for all those workloads. And internally, all these storage service offerings are leveraging the distributed storage fabric that we currently have. So now let's look at what could HCI power. So if you look at Nutanix, we have customers across many different workloads. So if you think about it from a business critical applications, VDI, remote branch offices, messaging, collaborating, dev test, big data, server virtualization, the HCI platform can power all these customers. Many of our customers, for example, start with one or two use cases and then expand into other applications as they get more comfortable with the solution. And as they use the one-click simplicity and one-click operations that we have, they realize the true power of hyperconvergence. So if you think about it, the Nutanix solution is just not about the products that we sell and the apps that you run. It's about the overall experience. So for example, you can start with a community edition. You can evaluate Nutanix software on almost any hardware or cloud. And you download the software from the website and launch an instance of Nutanix running on a public cloud in a few minutes to immerse yourself with the product. Then with Nutanix X-Ray, you can test the product for common use cases without having to move your production workloads over. The workload demands can be simulated to understand the performance and availability metrics of the platform. And this is not just on the Nutanix platform, but also on several other HCI solutions. So you can make an informed decision of who you want to go with. And then we have sizing. Sizing workloads to get the right infrastructure is a black magic that only a select few understand. The Nutanix Sizer, customers and partners can put in workload information that they expect to run on Nutanix, and based on historical customer data, Sizer gives the exact BOM and what is required to support those workloads. No more spreadsheets, no more guesswork. And then deployment of Nutanix software and hypervisor is also with one click through the foundation tool. Nutanix also ships tools like Extract, VM Extract, and DB Extract to migrate virtual machines and databases from non-Nutanix environment to Nutanix environment. Finally, once workloads are deployed and running on Nutanix, like mentioned earlier, going forward with Xi, which is our public cloud offering, and we're going to start Xi, you can seamlessly extend your deployments to the cloud. It is the complete experience that really sets Nutanix apart from all the other hyperconverged vendors in the market. And also, the most important thing is Nutanix is all about choice across the entire spectrum. And this really truly differentiates Nutanix because you have a free choice for the hardware, hypervisor, cloud provider, and still build an end-to-end stack with Nutanix and deliver services with same one-click simplicity. So from a hypervisor perspective, we talked about it. From hardware perspective, in addition to Nutanix and X Appliance, you have a choice of OEM partners, Dell, Lenovo, IBM as well, and HP and Cisco. And then native extensions are also available for Azure and AWS today and Google Cloud and Nutanix Xi Cloud services, which will come in the near future. Finally, from a consumption perspective, people can go the CapEx path or the OpEx path, as well as the software on the ELA, if that's what they prefer. And Nutanix is all about eliminating locking and enabling customers to make the right choice based on their business needs. So I'm going to conclude my session. Thank you so much for listening.
Great presentation. Thank you, Miriam. We do have some questions from the audience for you. Let's see. First one here they're asking about is are containers supported on Nutanix?
Yes. So containers are supported. You can currently deploy Kubernetes or Docker containers on Nutanix, and we provide a storage plugin which enables you to deliver a persistent storage to the containers as well. So we have that for Docker and for Kubernetes.
Okay. And is there a software-only version of Nutanix, or is that just for evaluation only?
No, actually, I don't know if you guys have followed us, but we have moved our whole company into a software solution. So you have a choice. You can do an X appliance, or you can just buy software.
Okay. And George here, he's asking about training. Are there training options for Nutanix?
Training options. So yes, we do have training options. So we provide a lot. We do a lot of external webinars. But please do not hesitate to contact me, and I can also put him in contact with all the stakeholders that will provide those trainings.
Okay. And another question here, they're asking, is there management software available for Nutanix clusters? And they put Prism with a question mark after that.
Yes, that's Prism. That's our management software. And that's where you get the power of machine learning and intelligence of our stack. So it provides the whole infrastructure management in a simple way. You can one-click operations, one-click upgrades, and it's one of it's one of my favorite products of Nutanix because it's very simple and easy to use.
Okay. All right. Well, excellent. I think that's all the time we have for live Q&A. There's a lot more questions there for you left in the queue. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
All right. For more information on Nutanix, visit Nutanix.com. Also, check out the resource that's available there in your console. So we have some more prizes to give away now. It's that time again. We have a Sonos Dual Play 1 with the sub wireless audio kit and another Amazon $500 gift card. While I announce those prize winners, I'm going to pop up this poll question that's on your screen. How many people work in your IT department? So go ahead and answer that question. And the next grand prize winner for the Sonos kit is going out to Jose Thomas from Texas. Congratulations, Jose. And the next Amazon $500 gift card is going out to Matthew Lutz from Wisconsin. Congratulations, Jose and Matthew. All right, hopefully you've answered that question because I'm going to share the results with you right now. And it looks like 29% on the event today have more than 100 people. 14% have 11 to 24, and 18% have 2 to 5 people in their IT organization or IT department. Excellent. Thanks for answering that one. And with that, I'm excited to introduce Tushar Agarwal, Director of Product Management from Datrium. Tushar, are you there?
I'm here. Great attempt at the name. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being on today. Tell us about Datrium.
Excellent. So, just kind of introduce myself again. I'm Tushar Agrawal, and I'm here at Datrium. I'm Director of Product Management. What I hope to do today is to, kind of give you guys a good sense of what we do, some of our unique approaches around converging Tier 1 hyperconvergence, backup, and cloud in the same platform, and give you guys a break and give you guys some demos and some screenshots so you can actually look at, how simple the product is and how cool some of the features that we've built really are. So let's get started. So the first thing that I want to kind of highlight is Datrium is focused on converging more. And if you've looked at the evolution of the industry, there's been a steady trend towards convergence. We believe that the time has come to converge even more, and we do that by bringing together Tier 1 performance and scale in a software-defined architecture, scale-out backup capabilities, and a very seamless method of going to the cloud, be it for backup and DR purposes. And that's kind of what Datrium is focused on. We've built a foundation that helps us deliver on each of these three promises, and we have a phenomenal roadmap that helps us become great for doing this for our customers so that they can manage their entire VM data lifecycle, be it from running those VMs, be it from backing up those VMs, and going to the cloud for archival or disaster recovery purposes. What we hear from our customers is by doing this, we've been able to reduce their administration time by 95% because they have much less to manage. We have ensured that their revenue is a lot faster. And we've also helped them save a lot of money because they need to buy a lot less. So we've been in the market for about 2 years, or just over 2 years now. We've had the record adoption, over 200 or 250 customers, over 300 systems deployed in that time frame. Really a good cross-section of deployments across a variety of verticals, and also some phenomenally great customers in the Fortune 100 group. So it's going great. And I want to kind of share with you why that is so. So this presentation is going to focus on three things. I'll talk about Tier 1 HCI, and what do we mean by performance, scale, and resiliency. I'll talk about the scale-out backup and then how we've built a foundation that can coexist and provide performance and backup in the same architecture. And then I'll show you a really cool demo and talk about our cloud story where we can simplify the cloud to the extent that it offers an iCloud, iPhone-like experience. All of this has been behind how Datrium was awarded the best product of the year by TechTarget this year, ahead of a lot of very established vendors. So this is the real deal, and I kind of want to get started. So the first thing that's important to understand is that the Datrium architecture has two main tiers, right? Unlike some of the other approaches where everything is consolidated onto a single box, Datrium splits the provisioning, or call it performance tier, and protection tier into two separate systems. The performance tier are essentially anywhere from 1 to 128 compute nodes. This is where the Datrium software runs, and this is what provides all of the data services, be it deduplication, compression, erasure coding, be it snapshots, replication, or encryption. We are leveraging underutilized CPU cycles on your hosts that you already have, and we use those hosts to provide all of the data services. We then have the protection tier, which could be disk optimized or flash optimized, and that's where all your safe data lives. So what this means for you is your compute nodes are being leveraged in a software-defined manner, but they are still stateful. And by stateful, what that means is you could have n-1 host failures, or you could have all SSDs going away in a single host without any impact to your running VMs. And so some of the cool things about the architecture also are that we enable customers to bring commodity flash and deploy that in the compute nodes. All reads are done by the local compute nodes, which means that your latencies are always sub-millisecond at the VM level, not at the array level. And you get phenomenal performance and scalability such that you can scale compute and you can scale capacity independent of each other. So let's contrast this a little bit with what and how it looks different than what you've sort of seen so far. And honestly, Datrium, as a new company, has had the opportunity to evaluate the market and look at what were some of the challenges with some of the existing approaches and build on top of that. So if you look at the very left, you have the converged infrastructure systems where you have a separate server and a separate array. And that is great for data durability because your data is not on the host. And so if the host goes down, no problem to the data. But your controller is limited, which means that you buy what you buy. And if you want to scale that, you have to have another upgrade. On the next level, you have the hyperconvergence, and they have done a great job with simplifying the infrastructure for you by converging all of it, which means that you can now scale your workloads as you add more compute nodes. But they've also moved data durability in those compute nodes, which are a lot more active from a maintenance perspective. There's a lot more innovation. There's a lot of, compute nodes are very fast moving, and there's a lot of change. And every time you do a maintenance request, you have data at risk problem, because every time a compute node is taken out of service, you have your compute nodes sort of in a degraded mode, and your data has to be rebuilt, which is a problem when you kind of deploy these systems at scale and you try and consolidate a lot of workloads on these platforms. What Datrium has done is we have split the functionality from an array controller perspective. We have disaggregated the array controller and moved that functionality into the hosts so that every time you add a host, you're basically adding a mini controller. But we have kept the host stateless, which means the data resides in a very dumb, just a bunch of disk data node, which is, super cost optimized, globally deduped, so that your data is safe and you're also leveraging the compute cycles for all of the data services. What it means, servers are stateless. You can use any compute node. We have no dependency on the compute node that you bring. You can bring your favorite vendor, and it's designed to work very well with, rack, blades, tower, be it any server that you want. All reads are served locally, which means your performance is very good. And you have isolated performance for your applications because these compute nodes do not need to talk to each other for data protection. Each compute node serves the I/O and virtual machines that are running on itself. And so you don't sort of have the east-west traffic and the interruption to a certain compute node coming in from the other compute node that may cause performance problems. Proof point, we did the largest ever software-defined storage HCI-like benchmark. We did it with an audited result, with IOMark being the auditor. We achieved 10x the performance of the highest hyperconverged system result published so far. We achieved 5x the performance of the fastest all-flash array result achieved so far. We did this at 1/3 lower latencies. Again, going back to the local reads, nothing gets faster than local flash inside the server. And we did that with all of our data services on. So you had compression, deduplication, always on erasure coding, and encryption always on. And we achieved those numbers with that. So we're pretty happy about that. Now let's switch gears. So you kind of saw how well Datrium performs, right? I think there's been an audited result. There are several other publications out there. But let's talk about built-in data management and backup. What Datrium has, first of all, what you need for great backup is all of your data services should be should be always on and should not have an impact on performance. That's the first requirement. And so what Datrium has built is a foundation that enables you to have no knobs for deduplication, compression, and erasure coding. You just get it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to configure it. It's always on. It always runs. It's always performant. On top of that, we have built a backup catalog right into the product, which means that you can snapshot, replicate, clone, restore. You can perform all of these operations which you need for your data protection as well as copy data management use cases like test dev, analytics, reporting, compliance. You can do all of that at a very granular level. Not only are we VM-centric, you can actually drill down to a virtual disk. You can actually drill down to a container. And I kind of forgot to mention this up front. You can actually run this on VMware. You can run this on Red Hat KVM. You can run this on bare metal Linux running Docker containers. And so you have the platform now that can help you protect VMware virtual machines, KVM VMs, and Docker containers down to the granularity of a persistent volume or a VMDK, if I may call so. At the same time, you can scale this massively and you can manage it in a very simple way. We have a policy-based engine where you can specify something as simple as a regex pattern that says, protect all my VMs that have SQL in their name. And we go and discover those VMs and we start taking consistent point-in-time snapshots for all those VMs that you want to group in what we call a protection group. You can take up to 1 million snapshots on Datrium DVX, and you can retain them differently between your on-site, between your production and your target server, so to say. Lastly, encryption in the Datrium case is 100% software-based. We do not require self-encrypting drives, which is a big reason for why customers have to be very choosy about what they choose to encrypt. You can encrypt everything. It's performed on the host side, so it scales as you add host, and data is encrypted not only at rest, but it's also encrypted in flight and in the host cache, which means that data going from the host to the data node is encrypted on the wire before it actually hits the data node, which is pretty cool. If you have network sniffing happening, no problem. You can actually deal with that as well. We also ship the product with a built-in key manager, and so you don't need an external key manager to work with the Datrium encryption product. So how did this work, and what can you actually do with it? So we have a construct of a protection group, which is where you can provide the wildcard. It will pull in on the VMs. Once you have that, you now have the ability to restore or clone. And restore would be where you have some sort of a event, such as a VM deletion. And you have the clone operation, which you can use to perform dev test on the production environment. You can also replicate it using our Elastic Replication product, which is fully dedupe aware. And so you don't transfer any duplicate data from one site to the other site. You're always transferring unique data that the other site does not have. And your replication is not taxing your system because it is host scalable, which means every host participates in the act of transferring data. so that you don't have a central bottleneck like you do in an array controller. So once data is replicated to the other side, you have the full flexibility now to operate on that in any manner you want. If it's a disaster, you can promote that protection group and get it running on the other side. Or if you wish, you can clone it in the other side so that you can perform your analytics and dev test use cases on a non-production cluster running on the DR side. All of the operations, snapshots, cloning, replication are all dedupe aware, so you realize a huge amount of space savings as you do all of these operations. Now let's switch gears and talk about the third angle, which is cloud. So what Datrium has done is we have ported our entire product to run natively in AWS, which means all of these always-on data reduction capabilities that I talked about, all of the snapshots ability that I talked about are now available for our customers to send data from an on-premises Datrium DVX to the public cloud in a very, very easy manner. When I say that, what do I mean? I mean that it is as a service simple. There is zero management requirement from the customer side. This is really a big deal, and you'll see that in the demo. What it means is that you don't have to learn AWS at all. We take care of everything for you, and I'll give you a demo on that. But at the same time, from an on-premises perspective, Datrium DVX is all you need. You don't need a separate backup product. You don't need a cloud gateway. You don't need WAN accelerators. Everything has been built into the Datrium DVX product so that you can get great performance, you can get great backup economics, and you can go straight to cloud in a very simple manner. What it also means is it's highly efficient. We are deduplicating data across all sites that may be sending data to the cloud DVX, which means that you are storing the absolute minimum in the cloud. And if you have played with the cloud, cloud can get pretty expensive if you don't have the right optimization and if you don't optimize the amount of data that you store in the cloud. What we do is we eliminate any duplicates. We make sure that you never send fulls beyond the first seeding, and you don't have to learn AWS. So from an operational standpoint, it's super simple. Lastly, why do you back up? You back up so you can bring the data back. And what we allow customers is to get a very, very fast RTO back from cloud to their on-premises system. And we do that because data goes straight from the cloud to the Datrium DVX, where it can get production tier 1 performance instantly without any rehydration from another backup system. You can restore VMs and VMDKs instead of LUNs, which means the egress costs out of Amazon are a lot lower. And again, the transfers are as fast as they can get because you're only transferring the data that the other side does not have. So just as by way of example, from an economics perspective, here's an instance where Datrium, we kind of have two scenarios here. There's the Datrium DVX approach, and there are other approaches where you write directly to S3 without an EC2 instance running in the cloud. In the Datrium solution, we have an EC2 instance running in the cloud that enables all of the deduplication benefits. And if you contrast those approaches, there is a 10x difference in your AWS cost when you have Datrium running versus an approach which writes directly to S3. And the reason for that is primarily because we deduplicate data in the cloud, but at the same time, we are forever incremental. In the case of an S3 direct approach, you don't get in-cloud deduplication, and you also have to make sure that for every few incrementals, you send a full again, so that you don't have these very long chains of incrementals and fulls, which can create a problem when you have to delete one of those snapshots. And so what vendors do is they send 5 increments and maybe a full, and then 5 increments and maybe a full, and that really adds to a lot of cost on S3. So enough of slideware. Let's kind of look at two demos from this point onwards. One is, I want to show you how simple the Datrium DVX is to manage. You'll see that there are really no knobs. There's nothing to configure except for configuring your protection schedule. And then the second demo we'll see is the cloud DVX, where I'll show you how easy it is to go to the cloud from a Datrium DVX product and get your data back when you need it. So let's jump into it. So the first thing you'll see is that the Datrium DVX GUI is fully integrated with VMware vCenter. We also integrate with the VMware vCenter HTML5 plugin, and so we have both those options. We also have a standalone GUI in case you wish to have an isolation of administration between who's managing vCenter and who's managing the Datrium GUI. So it's completely flexible. The first thing we are showing you here is the dashboard view of our product. And what you can instantly see is that we are fully VM-centric. What the dashboard is showing you is that the amount of VM throughput that your system is providing. It's showing you the overall IOPS that the system can provide. You can see the latencies here, and they constantly stay under a millisecond because all reads are coming from local flash. You can have up to 16 terabytes of physical flash in the box, and with deduplication and compression, we see anywhere from 4 to 4.5x data reduction total. And so that's a lot of flash on your host, which means your entire workload can just run from local flash. We also show you the capacity remaining. We show you the deduplication numbers. We also show you something cool here is how many more hosts can you add in the scale-up potential. So this is where we support up to 32 compute nodes with one data node, and you can scale up to 128 compute nodes and 10 data nodes, which offers up to 1.7 petabytes of storage capacity in one system. Let's keep going to the next one. So the next one is we have an integrated, very granular monitoring system baked into the product. And so you can drill down to a host level statistic, you can drill down to a VM level statistic, and you can drill down to a system level statistic and look at data and correlate that data over the course of a period of 1 year. And so that's built right into the product. It's all accessible from the same vCenter plugin. The data nodes are very simple. Each data node has about 12 drives. And this is the screenshot that shows you the health status of each of the components. We also have a click there which shows you the photo of the platform. I won't kind of go into that. You can see the host view, and this is the host view. This is all the statistics that are important from a host perspective. And you can see on the top right here, there's an indicator for fast mode and insane mode. It's a very cool animation. I didn't kind of bring it into the demo today, but what it essentially means is how much resource in a compute node is Datrium going to consume. In the fast mode, we consume anywhere up to 20%. In insane mode, we consume anywhere up to 40%. It's up to 40%, which means if an application needs it, we would not, consume it. We'll consume less. But what it means is that you can instantly double your performance by just a flick of a button. And there's a pretty cool animation that runs when you actually do it. It's truly insane. The next one is VMs view. So you can see all the VMs that are running on your platform. What's interesting there is you can see the data store view and the snap store view. Now, data store is all the active VMs, all the live VMs, all the registered VMs that are running on your platform. Snap store is a backup catalog. So you can click on Snap store, and you can see how easily you can search for VMs. I have an example there of star SQL star, and that will bring up all the VMs in the data store, if you're on the data store tab, or in the Snap store, which basically means that I have a snapshot of that VM, even though it may not actually exist anymore on my vCenter. So you can actually search for those snapshots and operate on them. Same thing with files. And so you can look at all the files that are on our data store. This is important for many customers where they have ISOs, they have OVAs, they have some backups that are dropping to the data store. You can use the same functionality to snap them, to replicate them, to clone them, or restore them. And then lastly, this is the only tab where you need to do something. And that's the protection tab. So you can see there are three things here. There are live groups, and this is the protection group that I talked about earlier. This is where, and I'll show you the details on this in the next demo. But essentially, this is a way of grouping which VMs you want to snap and the policy attached to it. The second thing you see there is essentially the replica groups. And so these are groups that are coming inbound to this platform from other DVX systems. And the last thing you see is the replica sites, which kind of gives you a quick map on the very bottom of which DVX systems is this particular system paired with, and so consequently, which system can it send its snapshot to, and which system can it receive snapshots from. So hopefully that gives you a quick overview of the capabilities of the platform. Let's go to the next demo. And in this demo, what I hope to show you is the detail on how you configure protection groups, but importantly, how easy it is to set up a Cloud DVX instance in AWS. And you'll see that it's actually just 1, 2, 3. So you get an AWS account, you download your security credentials, and you input them in the Datrium DVX product, and we take care of everything from that point onwards. You'll see that we'll spin up an EC2 instance in Amazon. We will configure it appropriately. We use Lambda functions for constant monitoring of the platform, so you don't have to do anything. We make sure that the instances stay alive and available, so we do availability management, and we do upgrades automatically for your Cloud DVX instance, and we send proactive telemetry back to our support teams so that if there is a problem, we can identify it before you have to look at it. So let's kind of look at the demo real quick. So what I'm going to show you here is we click on Add a Replica Site, and you can see that it brings up the ability to pair with an existing DVX or a Cloud DVX. This is where you enter your Amazon access key, your secret key, and let's call it AWS Cloud DVX. And that's it. And you click on Add. What we do in the system is spin up everything and get Cloud DVX ready for you. And it's done. Now let's kind of look at how you can protect your VMs on your primary site and send them to AWS. So here's the protection group. We'll edit group and schedule, and you can call it anything you want. You can see here that we have a pattern here for star VMs, and that pulls in all the VMs that you need to protect. You can specify the local retention, you can specify the remote retention, and let's say we call it 1 year in this case, and click Finish. And that's it. So every few hours, your data will start going to the cloud. Now let's look at a scenario for how you can get data back from the cloud. And so this is the list of snapshots for that protection group. These are all the local snapshots that are on the system right now, but you can click on a button and it shows you all the snapshots that may exist on this site or another site. So if it's an on-prem DVX, you can see that. If it's a Cloud DVX, you can see that as well. And what you're looking at right now are the snapshots which are only on cloud. So we'll go ahead and retrieve them. So we click on Retrieve. And you can specify how long you want to keep it around on your local system. Let's say we do it for 24 hours, and we click Retrieve. And the retrieve happens really fast because only the unique data is being transferred. Now, what I did here is I retrieved a protection group, which is the bulk of VMs. What you can also do is drill down underneath that and just retrieve a specific VM. You can also see on the right here, we have the ability to retrieve individual files, which are data store files. And all of that is super simple and fast. So that's the demo. Let's kind of go to the next slide here. So let me summarize. What I've shown you so far is great performance, validated by third party, local flash performance for all your applications, great data protection, always on, no configuration required from a data reduction and data efficiency perspective, great backup catalog like features so that you can do very granular data management and data protection, snapshots, clone, replication, everything dedupe aware, and a very simple way to get to the cloud, an iPhone iCloud-like experience that requires you to have an Amazon account, enter the credentials, and you're ready to send your data to the cloud for backup and restore purposes. So I want to thank you for your time, and we'll head back to question and answers. Thank you.
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you very much. I like the live demos there. Really cool to see it in action. So first question we have here from the audience is a little bit. They're asking for a little bit more details on, can you bring your own server and do you support blades?
Absolutely, a great question. So as I said, we have a stateless host architecture, And what that really means is there is no need for these servers to be of the same type. There are no requirements. All you need is that they should have 20% of underutilized CPU, which I don't think will be a problem. And you can bring 2 SSDs into a server, and that's it. And you're ready to run Datrium. So you can run it on rack servers, be it 1 socket, 2 socket, 4 socket, 8 socket, your choice. You can run it on blades. We actually have a substantial deployment of our customers on blade platforms. It's majorly because we need, a very little amount of flash, and blades typically have fewer cache slots, so to say. And so you can bring any server from any vendor, and Datrium just does its job.
Nice. And so what happens in terms of availability if, let's say, a host or an SSD fails?
Great question. So the great thing about hosts being stateless is that, first of all, you can lose more than 2 hosts in a particular DVX system, right? That's probably some of the limitations of the earlier approaches that we have seen on hyperconvergence. Is the max you can lose is 2 hosts. In the Datrium architecture, you can actually lose n-1 host, providing the one remaining host has the ability to serve all your VMs from a CPU RAM perspective. But you can lose n-1 hosts. From an SSD perspective, you can lose all SSDs on a host. What we do is we go into what we call a distributed cache mode or a peer mode. And in that case, it's only in that case when you lose all SSDs, or let's say you lose the RAID controller, it's only in that case that your reads are coming from another system's cache, which is, in other words, that's the normal case for hyperconvergence systems in many cases. For us, that's an exception in case you lose all cache. The VMs don't see an impact. They still keep running. And the last case is if the whole host goes down, we do a quick upload of the data from the data node into the cache of the another node, which is where the VMs are going to be restarted. So we have a very, a fast upload capability on our data nodes, and your applications can just get restarted on another host and then have local data again in the event the whole host goes down.
Excellent. Well, I think that's all the time we have for live questions, but it's been really fascinating, and there's a lot more questions left for you there in the queue, a lot of technical questions. Thanks so much for being on today, Tushar.
Thanks. Good day. Bye.
For more information on Datrium, of course, visit their website. Also check out the Datrium DVX product brochure that's available for download right there on your console. All right, so with that, we have another prize announcement to make. While I do that prize announcement, I'm going to pop up. This is the final poll question here on the event today, and that is, what is your time frame for considering hyperconverged infrastructure solutions for a new project or for a hardware refresh? I'll just leave that on the screen, and I'll make the first announcement for another Sonos audio bundle. Grand prize number 4 is going out to Melissa Jordan from Oregon, and Amazon gift card number 4 for $500 is going out to Dora Patton from Pennsylvania. Congratulations to both of you. I'll announce those winners in the chat window there, as well as over on Twitter. All right, hopefully you've answered that question on your screen, because we're moving on. It's my pleasure to now introduce Mr. George Wagner. He is the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Pivot3. Are you with us, George?
I am, David. Can you hear me?
I can. Thanks for being on. Tell us about Pivot3.
All right. So, my name is George Wagner, Pivot3. So we do a hyperconverged infrastructure that is focused in 2 distinct areas. One is traditional IT, and the other is surveillance back-end infrastructure. I'll go through that today and provide a demo as well. So for those of you who haven't heard of Pivot3, we are a technology company founded in 2006. And what really makes us unique, if you will, is that we have a lot of history around storage. So this hyperconverged infrastructure was actually designed originally as a storage system. It was software-defined storage, actually. block storage that ran on servers to start, and then became hyper-converged infrastructure when we realized that along with Moore's law, we ended up having more CPU cycles available, so we could run VMs on there. Moved into surveillance infrastructure and then into IT infrastructure. Today we have over 18,000 systems installed. We have several key innovations that really make us unique in the market. What we'll be focused on today actually is the last two, which is policy-based performance management for consistent, predictable outcomes, as well as our NVMe flash data path. So when we look at hyperconverged infrastructure, of course, I've got a background in IT. Actually, I was an IT manager before I moved into the vendor side of things. And the more technology emerges around the CPU and RAM advancements, as well as storage around SSD, NVMe technologies, etc. Traditional IT definitely works to accommodate most any challenge you have out there. Traditional IT being server storage and networking, virtualization, etc. But many of us need to keep in mind that it can be a little tough to deploy, tough to manage, and often requires specialty expertise in certain areas such as storage, virtualization, etc. So while it can be made to accommodate new applications, data center refreshes, etc., it definitely requires a bit more than a lot of organizations can handle from both a cost and a management standpoint. Hyperconverged, of course, provides, as you've been hearing today, increased agility, operational efficiencies, simplicity by combining those three traditional areas into a single x86 modular system. And up until now, it's been great for targeted workloads. So you'll often find hyperconverged being talked about in the same conversation as VDI or targeted workloaded certain databases, maybe remote office, branch office, and all those types of situations. And one of the reasons why it is just now being considered as an acceptable replacement for traditional architecture is that companies like Pivot3 and others are coming out with ways to manage performance. And what we have is a pretty unique way to do that, and I'll talk about that. But more to my point, as it says here, warning: resource contention may cause severe end-user discomfort. Talking from an IT background as a storage geek, one of the biggest challenges for storage is that resource contention definitely causes issues, and if you have no way to mitigate resource contention, that means if you have multiple applications vying for the same resources, you end up with unhappy end users, and when you have unhappy end users, you get phone calls, etc. So you definitely don't want to have those types of issues. So if I have, in this case, multiple applications vying for those same resources, they're fixed, and if all those workloads have equal access, you end up with situations like we see here on the right side of the screen, where I may have three different workloads, my order database, my power user, VDI user, as well as my DevDB. And while they're all important, if that DevDB begins getting hammered, it starts taking some of those resources. It gets the performance, which is not what we want. And then my mission critical workloads end up getting starved of performance resources. So that's definitely one of the reasons why customers have been a little leery when it comes to, or I guess shy about moving over to hyperconverged infrastructure to really accommodate some of those more mission-critical type workloads and data center consolidation and those types of things. So what we've done here at Pivot3 is really designed a system that's kind of from the ground up that's really built to address this concern and meet this need. We started with designing a system around NVMe PCIe flash, and I'll talk about that here later in the presentation. But essentially, It's basically treating Flash the way Flash should be treated versus treating it like a disk drive, like we've done for years now. So NVMe PCIe Flash is our data path. We also have our quality of service engine that allows you as a customer to apply policies that manage performance and predictability of performance to each individual application to ensure SLAs are met. And that's where it comes in kind of around the intelligence piece. You can provision performance. We essentially guarantee that mission-critical workloads meet their SLAs. And then beyond that, we can do that in a very efficient in a very efficient manner. And we can provide high availability that's very efficient. That is, kind of thinking beyond traditional replication between nodes for protection and looking more to more advanced erasure coding methods, and we'll talk about that as well. So I would say kind of the big takeaway, I know there's a lot of information being thrown at you from all of the presenters here. At least from my perspective, I think one of the biggest takeaways from Pivot 3 is to understand that we are really designed to provide predictable performance. Prior to our hyperconverged products, we actually had an enterprise storage system that was, and we still have it, in fact, that was designed to deliver predictable performance. And we essentially ported all of that into our hyperconverged system. So you can really say, kind of at its heart, the kind of the core engine within the HCI system that Pivot 3 offers is an enterprise storage system that's capable of delivering predictable performance by first allowing you to provision performance. So we have policies that allow you to do that, set minimum targets, and manage IOPS, throughput, and response time for every single application of the system. Part of that also is applying what we call service levels to each policy to then prioritize mission-critical I/O over all others and allow them to meet service levels. And finally, enabling you to simplify IT. So using preset policies, you don't have to be an expert, performance expert, to manage our systems, to manage a Pivot 3 hyperconverged solution. We even allow our customers to schedule policy changes between QoS policies for management. So when we look at where it's needed most in that same situation, kind of looking at a very similar situation as to what I showed you just a moment ago, where I had this order DB, Power User Desktop, and our DevDB. What we enable customers to do is to set these policies that define performance levels, as I mentioned, in terms of minimum throughput, minimum IOPS, and then maximum latency. And then when this happens, if I do have a spike in performance from a non-critical workload, I can throttle it back and ensure that it gets the appropriate performance level, but not more than that. Now, I mean, technically, it probably could get more, but only if the volumes that have higher level QoS policies assigned to them are getting their adequate performance as well. So in this case, our business critical workloads are getting more performance as well as our mission critical. Now, if that mission critical workload, that order database needs more performance, it'll get it, guaranteed. And the way that we handle that is we start with by throttling back our lowest level volumes first. So start with that non-critical volume, throttle it back, and if we need to get more performance, we go into the next level up, which is our business critical volumes. We can throttle those back a bit if we need to in order to meet the service levels that we've promised for the mission critical workloads. And then beyond that, if we wanted to take and automate, change management, we can do that as well. So if I have let's say I've got a boot storm, right? I'm using VDI. I have a boot storm every single morning. People are complaining about slow boot process. It's taking forever. What I can do is I can move it from a policy that it's typically on normally. In this case, maybe it's policy 5 or policy 3, and we'll say that at 8 a.m. in the morning, I go ahead and and move it from policy 3 to policy 1, or policy 5 to policy 1, and when that happens, it gets priority, IO priority, and all those, it ends up satisfying those requests much faster, and end users end up being happy, and I can switch it back. I can create another policy schedule that moves it back into its previous policy as well. So, very flexible, and I'll show that to you here in a moment. I'm going to give you a live demonstration of it in just a moment. And then from an architectural standpoint, we were actually designed around what we call NVMe flash. We don't call it that. It's actually a standard. You can think of it as a kind of a host controller interface, a command set that's designed for flash, for SSDs, if you will. You can think about the SSDs you have in your laptops and even many of your servers and storage today. For the most part, if they were designed, in the last few years, they are plugged into a SAS or SATA controller, and they're using a command set that's native to disks, not native to SSDs. So what NVMe does, this standard actually creates a command set for flash, and provides more command queues, like 64,000. So it ends up being designed around the properties and the benefits of SSD in order to get the most out of it. And so what we did was we designed the data path around it. And did that using a multi-tiered approach, so that we don't have to populate a node or an appliance with all NVMe SSD. So we take memory, NVMe flash, and then we back-end it with SSDs or hard drives, depending on if it's an all-flash or a hybrid array, a hybrid node. And then we take and aggregate multiple nodes together, because it is a scale-out architecture, what we're doing here. So, instead of having 12 drives in a single system that are accessible by a VM on that system, each VM that we have in the entire ESX cluster can access all the disk drives simultaneously. So instead of 12 drives, you can have up to 444 drives, right? And you're aggregating all of the flash, the hard drives, et cetera. And then it scales out, and if you need to scale capacity only, you can add capacity only nodes. If you need to scale compute, you can add compute nodes. If you need to scale both, you can scale both. And we scale we scale linearly on performance, but we scale better than linearly on our usable capacity. We use erasure coding. And erasure coding essentially is an advanced form of network RAID. So instead of taking and replicating data between HCI appliances, hyper-converged appliances, we take the data as it comes in, break it apart, and encode it with parity, and we use and then stripe it across all the nodes and across the nodes themselves and across the cluster itself. So it's kind of a horizontal and vertical striping across every single node, and it actually allows us to have high availability, so we can sustain multiple failures. We can lose up to, in the case of our data center systems, which we're talking about today, I can lose up to 3 drives across the cluster, or I can lose a single node plus a drive anywhere in the system. And on top of that, because we have larger disk pools, if a disk drive fails, you're only losing one up to, at the maximum 1/44 versus maybe 1/12 or 1/16. So it's definitely less impact on disk performance. And a great thing about this also is erasure coding provides better capacity efficiency. So as I mentioned, instead of when we're scaling, you can scale better than linearly on the capacity utilization. On a 3-node cluster, it starts at 57% available and then moves all the way up to 82% at scale. So it's highly efficient and it's highly available. And then from if you consider who we're talking to today, and most of the customers have an existing infrastructure that they may not be ready to retire. And we are, as I mentioned, very storage centric. Our systems we provision iSCSI LUNs. So this is an iSCSI system. You can provision volumes, shared storage that QoS managed volumes to your existing servers, VMs, and you can also take and provision external storage to the VMs in the hyperconverged cluster. So it's very flexible. You don't need any kind of special software to do this. It's just native to the system. And then from a use case perspective, they are, as I mentioned, it's one thing that differentiates us is that we provide an opportunity for customers to consolidate more, to run more mission critical and business critical applications in a hyperconverged environment. So you see a lot of customers that are doing these types of use cases, but they're doing them together rather than taking and relegating hyperconverged just to a remote office, branch office, or just for some server virtualization and a couple of apps. They're putting big data analytics as well as VDI and server virtualization and more into a hyperconverged infrastructure powered by Pivot 3, and then allowing the NVMe flash acceleration and quality of service to ensure that SLAs are met. From an architecture perspective, and features, we are all-inclusive feature set. These are not items that I'm covering today. But if you look over on the right side of the screen, these are features that are very familiar to storage admins out there, right? So snapshot replication, cloning, app integration, deep integration with VMware, phone home, all those are definitely included in the system. And what I wanted to do now is going to give you a live demonstration of our UI and show you how that works. So I'm going to share my screen and press play. And what you're looking at right now is the plugin, the Pivot 3 vCenter plugin that we have. So this is running in a VMware environment. And this is the dashboard. As you can see, there are 4 tabs at the top of the screen. The dashboard, the provisioning tab, the configuration tab, and the toolbox. There's a couple of things I want to point out on this. One is that we are looking at a 3-node cluster. So these are 3 x86 servers. We are looking at an all-flash type solution. And if you look at the devices here, these are all SSD devices, and there's SATA SSD, and then this is the normal, this is our NVMe flash device. So it's an add-in card, 8-lane. So it's very high performance. And I've got some synthetic workloads running over here just to kind of give you an idea of what it'll do. These 3 nodes are kicking out about 250,000 IOPS right now. So if we're looking at the performance graph, this is just kind of a quick eyeball of what's happening. We can see throughput, response time, IOPS numbers. These are 2U systems that we're looking at. And then over on the provisioning tab, I wanted to show you, kind of give you a better idea of what kind of going beyond the marketing slides and showing you what quality of service really looks like under the covers. As you look under the Performance QoS tab, we have the 5 policies. These are the 5 policies that ship with our systems, and there's no more. That's it. This is our 4th generation of quality of service. These 5 policies have worked for all of our customers. We have customers actually ask us if they can create customized policies. The answer is yes, we can, but we're pretty confident that you won't need them. And if you look at, as I mentioned earlier, what these policies encompass are minimum performance in terms of IOPS and latency, as well as maximum response time. So 1 millisecond maximum response time for policy 1, 125,000 IOPS minimum, and 1,000 megabytes per second throughput. And these obviously you're going to have multiple volumes. I've got 9 volumes associated with policy 1, 7, and 3. And so on, and they can be moved online. Now, the NVMe flash is used for multiple reasons. Where we've got the read warmer, which is kind of an intelligent cache, and because we are using quality of service, we can really dial in a very stringent methodology of flash access for every single policy. In the case of policy 1, it's 1 hit per megabyte, which is essentially the kind of the chunk size we have. So 1 hit per megabyte will move it up into NVMe, cache it. 4 hits for policy 2, 16 for policy 3, because these two right here are business critical, and then we disable the read cache for policy 4 and 5, which are non-critical. We use read-ahead cache, which is the RAM, so it's enabled for the first 3 policies that are mission and business critical. Really good for large sequential reads. And then write cache is enabled for all of them, so all the writes that go into the system are cached, are written to NVMe. If I go to create a volume, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. I don't have a whole lot of time today, so I'll show you a few things. If I created a volume in the system, we'll say it's just called Vol2. We give it access, set a performance policy. Right, so I can add it to I add a performance policy to it upon creation, which is standard. I can assign a protection policy if I want to. I can create custom ones, and I can give it a size and create a data store. For time purposes, I'm just going to kind of go through this, but yeah, definitely you can create a data store in here as well at the same time. And when it's done creating the volume, we go back into storage provisioning. It should be provisioned and waiting for us. All right, created. We'll close it, go back to storage provisioning, and I'll take the filter off. And I believe it's probably the second page here. Vol2, there it is. So Vol2. Now, if I go to the volume itself, I can see I can open back up. I can change the policy. I can bump the size up. I can create a schedule. So I mentioned earlier, if we had a schedule, if we had a volume that was in the case of it's a VDI volume, or maybe it's a database that needs to be run. You need to run reports on it a couple of times a month. You can create a schedule to either take a snapshot. You can change the performance policy. In this case, I change it from 3 to 1. I can tell it to run once. I can have it run by day, every day, at 6 a.m. It'll change from policy 3 to policy 1, and I can create the schedule. And then every day at 6 a.m., it'll move from policy 3 to policy 1, and I create another policy after that, or another scheduled policy after that to change it back from 1 to 3, maybe 9 a.m., and I'm good to go. So it's real simple. You can do your snapshots of volumes in here, protect volumes, which would be volume groups for snapshots. So you're quiescing like volumes that belong together at the same time. And then over here in the toolbox, we're looking at overall performance statistics. I can view it by service level or QoS policy, system level, network port. It's pretty flexible. And then I can look at every individual policy if I want to. I can view it by IOPS, throughput, latency, block size. And I can go from the last 10 minutes to the last year in time. So you can go back quite a bit. What I want to show you an example of is what happens when I change a policy and the instantaneous effect it has on the system. This is a real-time. This takes basically as every real time. What's happening in the background is we're recording statistics on data access and making real-time decisions about where data should live in the system. We can move it around real time. Policy is just the same. If I have a policy here that's policy 1. Volume 1 is on policy 1. It's under a millisecond. And this volume we're looking at just below it is volume 2. It's 2.4 milliseconds. It's in policy 5. If I change these, the effect is instantaneous. So let me change it. And after that, we'll open it up for questions. But if I modify volume 1, change it to policy 5. Wait a second. We're going to do the same thing to volume 2. Well, I guess the reverse to policy to volume 2. Moment. Volume 2, we'll modify it. Policy 5 to policy 1. Back into the toolbox. It should show instant change. So let's see, here we go. Close this out. If we go back to the toolbox now, it should refresh. There we go. It refreshes, you can see, right, we're 2 millisecond latency now on volume 1, and we're under a millisecond in volume 2. Right, so this isn't something that has to happen overnight. I know one of the challenges that people have with quality of service in the way that it's been done in the past is that if you were to use it, if you needed something changed immediately, you'd have to wait till the next day or later in the day for the QoS policies to catch up with it. One of the things we want to have happen here is that if we have a challenge and we want it nipped in the bud immediately, the challenge being solved tomorrow doesn't do my company any good right now, and that's what we're doing. So from a systems perspective, we offer 2U and 1U nodes. Multi-core systems. We're using the latest Intel scalable processors. From a scalability standpoint, our all-flash systems go up to 16 nodes. Hybrids go to 12, but maximum 144 drives. And these are add-in cards, so the NVMe flash are add-in cards in our 2U systems, and they're U.2 or 2.5-inch in the 1U systems. And we have a multitude of capacities, node capacities, for both flash and hybrid, and the 1 and 2U systems. If you need GPU, we do have NVIDIA Tesla cards for our 2U systems, and we're going to do PC over IP offload. And from a networking perspective, remember it is iSCSI, and we can do SFP Plus or RJ45 from that side. So before I open it up for any questions, if you have any questions and you want to get a deeper understanding of what we're doing, I'd be happy to give you a more in-depth demonstration. You can contact us at acuity@pivot3.com or call us there's a phone number as well as on our website. And with that, I'll turn it back over to David if there are any questions.
Yeah, George, great presentation. We do have some questions here for you from the audience. Let's see. First one is they're asking about, is there any integration between Pivot3 and the public cloud like AWS?
Yeah, so we do have that integration in today. Excuse me. We do provide that today through connectors within. We work within our own systems as well as through Zerto, through VMware, and others. And we actually have some new cloud connectors coming out in the next month and a half that'll actually make that connection even better, as well as providing support for more vendors.
Nice. Another question here. They're asking about how does the performance of Pivot3's flash-based HCI compared to, say an all-flash storage array?
No, it's a really good question. So I would say it's comparable. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have an all-flash array that's that we offer in our portfolio, and it's essentially running the same DNA under the covers as the HCI system. So the QoS and the flash data path, et cetera. So we're seeing lower latencies and higher the latency and IOPS throughput that you'd expect to see out of a flash system or even a flash or a hybrid, depending on what we're looking at. Of course, with storage, you do have there are some advantages that you're not running servers underneath. You're not dealing with some of the other overhead that's involved in it. But in my experience, this is definitely a good alternative from a performance standpoint to traditional storage.
Excellent. And how do people typically get started with Pivot3?
Well, I guess if you're talking about system-wise, most customers start off with like a 2U, what we call a VPG or cluster. So that could be either a 2U or a 1U cluster, and either SSD or hybrid. And we can help size a system that works best based on what your goal is. And from there, with the understanding that customers can scale beyond there based on what they need, they can add additional capacity or performance and capacity simultaneously. That's the best place. If you're looking for where to start, you want to look at it more. Definitely the data, the information that's on that slide is where you want to go to start. We can help you out from there.
Okay. All right. Well, excellent. Great presentation. Thanks for being on the event today, George.
You bet. Thanks a lot, David.
All right. For more information on Pivot 3, of course, visit pivot3.com, and also you can see the email right there on the screen, acuity@pivot3.com. And now we've reached the time in the event where I announce the final prize winners. And so we've got a Sonos bundle, our final Sonos bundle grand prize going out to David Schmidt from California, and our final Amazon $500 gift card going out to James Meadows from North Carolina. Congratulations to all the prize winners. We'll reach out to you to deliver your prizes. Before we go, I want to remind everyone to check out our podcast over on the iTunes podcast store. It is 10 on Tech. You can check us out there. We interview the latest innovators in enterprise technology, typically in around 10 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer, but it's a great show. I hope you'll check it out. I hope you also check out our website, events.actualtechmedia.com. It's there that you'll find out information on all the upcoming Megacast, EcoCast, and IT Virtual Summit events that we have from Actual Tech Media throughout the year. And then finally, I hope you'll join us for our next event. That is the Secondary Storage EcoCast event, which is March 22nd, coming up a week from tomorrow. In fact, I hope you'll take time to join us. If you don't have an invite for that event, visit events.actualtechmedia.com to register. Thanks, everyone, for taking time out of your day to join us on today's Hyperconverged, Converged, and Composable Infrastructure Megacast event. Have a great day. Bye-bye.